Chapter 905. I participated in a mathematics competition in my third year and won a huge sum of money. I entered G University as the top scorer in the National College Entrance Examination, and I earned over 10 million RMB in my first year. Hearing Lin Jie's nonchalant tone, Sure Yao, why don't you tell me the story between you and Be There? Be There. Lin Jie was stunned for a moment before he realized that she was referring to Liang Xiao. Isn't that a thing of the past? Why is it being brought up now? Lin Jie replied honestly, there's no story between the two of us. You're lying. Don't think that I don't know that she's the only girl who took supplementary lessons from you in junior high. When she left the country, you even sent her off. Furthermore, she chased after you in junior high, and she even pulled up a banner to confess to you, Lin Jie. He couldn't even remember these things clearly, so how could she be so clear about it? Lin Jie, tell me honestly. Was there any unspeakable secret between you and Be There in junior high? No. A second after Sure Yao said those words, Lin Jie immediately replied, Liang Xiao did confess to me, but I rejected her. How did Be There confess to you? How else could she have confessed? It's just something along the lines of, I like you, then how did you reject her? Lin Jie couldn't remember it clearly. He pondered for a moment before replying. I think I told her that I like mathematics, but I don't like you. Sure Yao. So, Be There was a woman who lost to mathematics? And she was the woman who defeated mathematics? Who could have thought that after so many years, she would still be able to defeat her most feared subject, mathematics? As for what you said about tutoring her and sending her off at the airport, those are all misinterpreted by others. She's on good terms with my sister, but Lin Jie is a good student except for her poor grades. She's always at the bottom of her class, and her mathematics scores have always been in the single digits from primary school to high school. Unable to put up with it, Grandpa had me tutor her, and it just so happened that Liang Xiao happened to be listening in on it. That's how those rumors started. As for her going overseas, it was because my sister wanted to send her off, and Grandpa happened to use our chauffeur, so I ended up being ordered around by Lin Jie. That day, there were a lot of cars driving into the airport, and by the time I parked my car in the parking lot, Lin Jie had already sent Liang Xiao off and called me to ask where I was. Hearing Lin Jie's long explanation, Sure Yao's heart leaped in joy. However, she still couldn't help but grab Lin Jie's arm out of curiosity and ask, could it be that you've never fallen for a woman before we got to know each other? Lin Jie, no. Seeing that Sure Yao wasn't replying, Lin Jie added, I really haven't. Lin Jie spoke up once more, I'm really not lying to you. Putting aside my former classmates, I still can't tell who the girls in my class are even after we graduate. Sure Yao smiled in satisfaction. Then, she added, Lin Jie, I didn't expect your survival instincts to be so off the charts. Lin Jie didn't say a word. The two of them continued walking for a while before Lin Jie turned to look at the smiling girl. Recalling the voice recorder in his pocket, he hesitated for a moment before asking, what about you? What? Chapter 906. All of a sudden, Sure Yao's footsteps came to a halt. He had no idea what he was afraid of, but even his breathing had become subdued. Even his heart was beating erratically, and he couldn't help but hold his breath for a moment. After an indeterminate period of time, perhaps only 10 seconds or so, but to Lin Jie, it felt like an eternity, he heard her voice. There's someone. Lin Jie didn't dare to look at Sure Yao. The silence between the two of them was a complete mess. Roughly 3 to 4 seconds later, Sure Yao spoke up once more, Lin Jie, I don't want to lie to you. I really did meet someone that I once wanted to fall in love with. He knew the answer, but when it came from her mouth, he still found it hard to digest it. As if something was stuck in Lin Jiej's throat, it took him a long time before he finally replied with an "oh." Shi Yao could tell that Lin Jiej was unhappy, so she leaned her head on his shoulder like a docile kitten and rubbed it lightly against him. Then, she continued, "But that kind of love is different from what you're imagining. I don't know if you have a female celebrity that you like very much, but it's the kind that you can't help but daydream about being together with her one day. Take Sis Jiayi for example. She would always say that a certain male celebrity is very handsome, and every time she sees his photo, she would say that he's her husband. Jiang Yu would hug Li Feng's pillow and say that it's her favorite. And the person that I once wanted to fall in love with is exactly that kind of existence to me. I'm not sure what you guys think, but almost all girls have the same youthful dream of being together with their idol. However, most girls know that it's just a dream, and it won't come true. After all, take Jay Cho for example. Isn't Madame Cho his fan? In the end, she ended up becoming his wife. It's really rare to see such a thing happen. So, it turned out that the person that Soft Bun once wanted to fall in love with was a certain celebrity. Which celebrity? Could he possibly be more handsome than him? Lin Jiej couldn't help but ask jealously, "Which celebrity do you like?" From now on, the Lin family wouldn't be investing in any of that celebrity's advertisements anymore. He's not really a celebrity, but in my heart, he's much brighter than a celebrity. At the mention of her idol, Shi Yao's eyes lit up. He's my idol, as well as my Adonis. I'm sure you'll be shocked to death if I tell you about it. He's an esports player who plays games. Up till now, I still don't know what he looks like. I think I've mentioned him to you before. He's the Adonis that I spent 100 renminbi to support. He's from Legend, AE Squadron. He's also the person who's always suppressing you on the leaderboards. He's the one I once wanted to fall in love with. Lin Jiej, who hadn't dared to look at Shi Yao ever since he asked that question, slowly turned his head to look at her. Shi Yao didn't notice Lin Jiej's gaze. She was still immersed in her own thoughts as she continued, "He's very strong. Ever since he debuted, he's won many championships. However, what I'm most impressed about him isn't how strong he is in the game but the depth and purity of his character. He plays games out of passion, and in this world, there are very, very few people who are willing to do something out of passion." Chapter 907. Let me tell you, my Adonis's hands are really beautiful. They're so beautiful that, they're just like the hands of the male leads in the manga. Their joints are clearly defined, and they're both aesthetic and erotic. Lin Jiej, aesthetic and erotic. What kind of description is that? Oh, you must not know what it means. Let me tell you, this is a little secret of us girls. It's used to describe those men who look clean and abstinent, but the more they look like in bed. So, to say that my Adonis's hands are aesthetic and erotic, it means that his hands are really beautiful. Everyone is curious about what he looks like when he touches a girl's body, Lin Jiej. So, girls can be so perverted too. I've learned something new. Lin Jiej, do you know that I overheard some girls discussing what you look like when you take off your clothes? Lin Jiej, sure enough, when girls get hooligans, there's nothing left for guys to do. Society. At this point, Shi Yao couldn't help but gloat. But it's a pity that they won't be able to see it for the rest of their lives. Hearing those words, Lin Jiej couldn't help but chuckle softly. Hearing that, Shi Yao turned around and saw an unconcealable look of joy on Lin Jiej's face. To be more precise, it was a look of delight and ecstasy. It was just like the look on her face when she dreamed of a mountain of snacks. She didn't say anything at all. All she did was say that the girls in the book wouldn't even be able to see him take off his clothes, so why was he so happy? Shi Yao tilted her head and pondered for a moment. She couldn't help but feel that Lin Jiej's ecstasy was a little weird, so she asked, what did I say to make you so happy? It's nothing. Lin Jiej's tone was very calm, but the smile on his face grew even more unrestrained. Really? Really? You're a dog if you lie to me. Lin Jiej replied. In his heart, he thought, I'm a dog, her dog. Shi Yao hooked her arm around Lin Jiej once more and began walking forward. After walking for a distance, Shi Yao suddenly recalled the story she had shared with Lin Jiej about their time in middle school and high school, and she couldn't help but feel a little sad. Lin Jiej, say, if we had gotten to know each other in middle school or high school, wouldn't we have gotten together then? Before he fell in love with Shi Yao, he didn't want to have anything to do with her. After falling in love with Shi Yao, Lin Jiej couldn't help but fantasize about how he would have gotten to know her much earlier. He couldn't help but feel a tinge of regret in his heart. However, Shi Yao's melancholy only lasted for a few short seconds before she got over it. But it doesn't matter. We're at the tail end of our youth, and we've walked together. In a way, we've spent our youth with each other. As Shi Yao spoke, she couldn't help but feel that her intelligence was resonating with Lin Jiej. Lin Jiej, do you think I'm right? Something's wrong. Faced with Lin Jiej's denial, Shi Yao turned her head away in displeasure. I have accompanied you through your youth. Chapter 908. That's not what he meant. But Lin Jiej didn't say anything. Shi Yao took Lin Jiej's silence as a tacit agreement. After a moment of contemplation, she felt that it was a little embarrassing and pitiful for Lin Jiej to be 2 years older than her. So, she consoled him, don't worry. I might not be able to accompany you through your youth, but I can accompany you through your old age. I promise that when you fall sick and are bedridden, I'll serve you with all my heart. I'll never pull out your oxygen tube, Lin Jiej. Should he be touched by Soft Bun's consolation, or should he break down? By the time Lin Jiej and Shi Yao returned home, it was already 3:30 a.m. After taking a shower, Shi Yao regretted having a heart-to-heart talk with Lin Jiej. From 4 a.m. until dawn, Lin Jiej had been tormenting her in all sorts of ways. And while he was tormenting her, he didn't stop talking. Yao Yao, have you ever imagined how I would look like after I take off my clothes? Then, have you ever imagined how I would look like when I kiss you like this? Have you ever imagined how my hands would glide across your skin like this? Have you ever imagined how I would love you so fiercely? Have you ever imagined how we would look like this, and this, and this? Lin Jiej woke up at 10:30 a.m., and as he recalled everything that had happened the previous night, his mind became so agitated that he couldn't sleep anymore. Eventually, he picked up his phone, ran to the family chat, and sent a message, I've encountered something that makes me happy. Half a minute later, no one replied in the family chat. So, Lin Jiej contacted his father, mother, uncle, aunt, and Lin Jie. His father, Lin Gubei, was the first to reply. Eat, sleep, beat son, I'll ask your mother for her opinion first. His uncle, Xia Yang, followed closely behind. Shui Yang sent an emoji. His aunt, Lin Gunan, was probably busy, so she didn't reply. Half a minute later, eat, sleep, beat son, your mother has given her approval, so what did you encounter that made you happy? Finally, someone had responded to his words. Lin Jiej raised his finger, but just as he was about to type out his reply, Lin Jie suddenly spoke up, ATM machine, if you dare to mention Yao Yao's proposal to you again, I'll rush up to you and give you a good thrashing right now. Eat, sleep, beat son, daughter, I support you. Aunt Lin Gunan finally spoke up, oh, so Jiej's happy event is Yao Yao proposing to Jiej. That's something to be happy about. Xia Yang's sharp eyes noticed that Lin Gunan's WeChat ID had changed from 20 kilograms, no change, to 24 kilograms, no change. Honey, why did you change your name again? 24 kilograms won't change your name. I've gained another 4 kilograms. Eat, sleep, beat sun. Don't reduce it. You can't reduce it anymore. Seeing that the chat in the group had changed the topic, Lin Jiej hurriedly went back to the main topic at hand. What I want to talk about isn't Yao Yao's proposal to me. I want to talk about something else that's worthy of my happiness. 24 kilos won't change your name. What's up? Shui Yang Yang sent a I'm all ears emoji. Eat, sleep, beat sun. I went to ask your mother again, and she told me to ask you what's up. Chapter 909. Less than 24 pounds slimmer. We don't want to guess anymore. Just get straight to the point. Shui Yang Yang sent an emoji that said, what the person above said is exactly what they wanted me to say. Eat, sleep, beat sun. Your mom said that you should hurry up and fart. Lin Jie, wise mother. Lin Jiej continued typing on his keyboard as he said what he wanted to say. To be honest, I'm afraid that I might scare you guys. Less than 24 pounds slimmer. I've always been the one scaring people, not the other way around. So, feel free to say it. Shui Yang Yang sent another emoji that said, what the person above said is exactly what they wanted me to say. Eat, sleep, beat sun. Your mom said that if you can't scare her, I'll beat you to death. Lin Jie, I'll do it. Immersed in his own emotions, Lin Jiej continued to progress slowly. Speaking of which, I still find it hard to believe that such a beautiful thing could happen. Even now, I still feel like I'm dreaming. Less than 24 pounds slimmer, you sure talk a lot of nonsense. Shui Yang Yang sent another emoji that said, what the person above said is exactly what they wanted me to say. Eat, sleep, beat sun. Your mom said that you don't feel like you're dreaming. You're just itching for a beating. Lin Jie, don't stop me. I'm going to kill him right now. Lin Jiej, but I'm sorry to tell you that I can't tell you about this for the time being. Less than 24 pounds slimmer. What do you want us to do then? Shui Yang Yang sent another emoji that said, what the person above said is exactly what they wanted me to say. Eat, sleep, beat sun. Your mom said that she doesn't have a son like you anymore. Lin Jie, if I say, I'm your grandpa, no one will mind, right? Less than 24 pounds slimmer, what do you think? Shui Yang Yang sent another emoji that said, what the person above said is exactly what they wanted me to say. Eat, sleep, beat sun. Jie, your mom told you to watch your manners. Lin Jie, I can't stay in this group anymore. Paying no heed to the frenzied crowd, Lin Jiej continued typing, that's because I have to share something that makes me happy with Yao Yao first. Only after Yao Yao learns of it will you know of it. 24 kilograms slimmer. Shui Yang Yang continued to send an emoji that said, what the person above said is exactly what you wanted me to say. Eat, sleep, beat sun. A married son is like spilled water. Lin Jie, sent a string of angry emojis. Lin Jiej, I'm just here to tell you guys that I've come across something really delightful. Lin Jie invited Yao Loves Ice Cream into the group. Lin Jie, Yao loves ice cream. Yao Yao, keep Lin Jiej in check. Lin Jiej leisurely picked up Shi Yao's phone and unlocked the screen with her finger. After which, he entered WeChat and sent a voice message to the family chat. Sorry, Yao Yao is sleeping. Jiang Wangue, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, left the group chat. Eat, sleep, beat sun, left the group chat. Lin Jie, left the group chat. Less than 24 pounds slimmer, left the group chat. Shui Yang Yang, left the group chat. Chapter 910. But in the midst of his laughter, Lin Jiej suddenly turned to look at Shi Yao, who was still in a deep sleep. There was something that he had to make arrangements for. She would surely be overjoyed when he was done and told her about it. With this thought in mind, he glanced at the calendar. There were still around 20 days until Christmas. So, he could give her an unforgettable Christmas present. Lin Enterprise, Lin Jiai, who was suffering from a severe headache due to her hangover, recalled Lin Jia's despicable attitude in the group chat, and she couldn't help but fling her phone onto her desk in anger. Coincidentally, Xie Shangzhou, who had just entered the office, saw this sight and subconsciously turned around to back away. The sharp-eyed Lin Jiai called out to Xie Shangzhou, "Hold it right there." As if a puppet under her control, Xie Shangzhou immediately stopped in his tracks. "Come here." Hearing Lin Jiai's command, Xie Shangzhou took in a deep breath with his back facing Lin Jiai. He slowly turned around and walked over to his desk. He placed the documents in his hands on the table and leaped back a meter. Lin Jiai shot Xie Shangzhou a perplexed glance. For some reason, she felt that the GPS was acting weirdly today. After she was done signing the documents, she gestured for Xie Shangzhou to take them away. Instead, she maintained the same distance from him and reached out to take the documents. Why is the GPS avoiding me so far away? Could it be that something happened last night? Lin Jiai tried her best to recall, but the only thing she could remember was that she was so dizzy at golden resplendence that she couldn't remember anything else. So, she raised her eyebrows at Xie Shangzhou and asked, "Did I beat you up yesterday?" Xie Shangzhou hurriedly shook his head, and no. If I didn't beat him up, why does he look like he's trying to avoid me? With this thought in mind, Lin Jiai gestured for Xie Shangzhou to come closer. Xie Shangzhou stood on the spot, not moving an inch. Paw! Lin Jiai slammed her palm onto the table, and before she could even say a word, Xie Shangzhou had already leaped up to her and shouted, "Boss Lin." Faced with Xie Shangzhou's fawning tone, Lin Jiai didn't say a word. Instead, she tugged on his tie and dragged him over to her side. She tilted her head upward and began examining him closely. As she drew closer, he could clearly smell the light fragrance on her body. His mind, which had finally calmed down, once again replayed the scene of her kissing his cheek in the early morning. His heart raced for no reason. The moment she opened her mouth, he abruptly raised his hand, slapped her hand away, and took 2 steps back. Without saying a word, he fled the office. As the door slammed shut with a dong, Lin Jiai frowned. She propped her chin in her hand as she stared in the direction where Xie Shangzhou had left, deep in thought. The navigator was really a little strange. The strangest thing was that he actually became bold and dared to resist her. This time around, Shuyao didn't stay at Lin Jiai's place for 3 whole days like the previous time. That afternoon, after she woke up, Lin Jiai accompanied her for lunch and told her that he would be going on a business trip for a longer period of time. Furthermore, he would be quite busy, so he wouldn't be able to contact her every day. Since Lin Jiai was busy with work, Shuyao didn't stop him. Thus, after lunch, those who were going on a business trip or returning to school returned. This parting went on for more than 20 days. As the final examinations were approaching, Shuyao immersed herself in her textbooks every single day, so she didn't think that the days were too difficult. But on the 23rd of December, she received a call from an unknown number. P.S. This baby has a 3-line love letter for everyone. I love all of you. Chapter 9-11. This farewell lasted for more than 20 days. As the finals were approaching, Shuyao immersed herself in her textbooks every single day, so she didn't think that the days were too difficult. But on the 23rd of December, she received a call from an unknown number. Looking at the number, Shuyao's first thought was that it was a scam or sales call, so she instinctively rejected the call. However, 5 seconds after she hung up, her phone screen lit up again. Are scammers and salesmen all so diligent these days? Shuyao stared at the flickering screen for a moment, and seeing that the call didn't seem to have any intention of letting it go, she tapped on the button to accept the call. As she wasn't sure who the other party was, Yao replied with a weak hello, but she didn't introduce herself. The other end of the call was silent for around 2 to 3 seconds before a gentle female voice sounded. "Excuse me, are you Miss Yao?" "Yes. You are." "Hello, Miss Yao. I'm a staff member of AE team." "AE team? Isn't that my Adonis's team?" Yao immediately tried to suck up to the other party. "Hello, hello. May I know why you are calling me?" Perhaps due to the huge difference in Yao's tone, the woman on the other end of the call couldn't help but chuckle. Then, she said, "It's like this, Miss Yao. You were at the SDL finals, and you even interacted with Legend. Do you still remember it?" Of course I remember it." Her Adonis, who rarely spoke in public, still spoke to her that day, even though it was just a single word, "Good." "Back then, you told Legend to work hard for the PGI World League, and that you hoped that he could become the first world champion of PUBG. The PGI World League finals happened to be held on Christmas night, and the venue was the Bird's Nest. I wonder if you have the time to watch Legend's match live." She had been keeping an eye on the tickets for the finals for many days now. But it was a pity that she couldn't even get one of the most ordinary tickets, let alone the VIP ones. With such thoughts in mind, Yao replied regretfully, "Of course I want to go, but I don't have a ticket, so I might have to support Legend in front of my phone." "Oh, you don't have to worry about the ticket. I was asked by Legend to call you to tell you that Legend has prepared a ticket for you. So, do you have a look and see if it's convenient for you?" Convenient, even more convenient than instant noodles. Hearing Yao's reply, the female employee on the other end of the call burst into laughter once more. "All right then. Leave me your address, and I'll send the tickets over to you." Yao replied with a "thank you" before passing the address of the school to the female employee. She waited for the other party to verify the information before hanging up the call. Not too long later, Yao received a notification on her phone that she had received a package. Yao happily took a screenshot and sent it to Lin Jie's WeChat. "Lin Jie, I feel like I'm going to make you a cuckold. What should I do?" For the past 20 days, he had been really busy. His replies to her messages were always late. Sometimes, he would only reply to her once every few days. So, faced with the silence from the other end of the phone, Yao continued to type and send her message. "My Adonis actually still remembers me and even prepared a ticket for the finals for me. Say, what should I do if he were to treat me to a meal after the finals? What if I can't control myself and agree to him?" Chapter 9:12. But don't worry, Lin Jie. I'll try my best not to cheat on you so easily. As she typed, Yao hugged her phone tightly and giggled foolishly. As it was mailed from the same city, Yao received the ticket for the PGI finals the next morning. It was Christmas Eve, and Lin Jie was so busy that he didn't even have time to send Yao a message. The PGI finals was scheduled to start at 6 in the evening. As it was Christmas Day, the traffic in Beijing was already extremely congested before 4 in the afternoon. The journey from G University to the Bird's Nest took roughly 10 minutes, but Yao took nearly an hour. Just like the previous time in Shenzhen, the queue to enter the stadium was extremely long, stretching all the way to the side of the road. The ticket that AE team had mailed to her this time was also for the VIP seats. She easily entered the stadium through the almost empty VIP passage. Even though there were still many people who hadn't entered yet, the Bird's Nest was already packed with people. It took Yao quite some time before she finally found her seat. She was still seated in the first row, the kind where she could see the contestants on the stage with just a lift of her head. There were still around 20 minutes before the start of the match. Yao sat in her seat, chatting with Leng Wan, He Tian, and Jiang Yu in the dormitory group chat. Suddenly, she heard a female student shouting behind her, legend posted on Weibo. He said that today will be his final match. There were quite a few legend fans in the stadium. Even though they didn't know each other, some of them still chimed in. Are you for real? God L is going to retire. Previously, on the forum, I saw someone say that God L was going to retire after the SDL competition during the summer break. But for some reason, he decided to compete in the PGI World League. But at that time, there was no official announcement. Maybe it was just a rumor. But now, God L has said it himself. Hearing the discussions around her, Shiryao was stunned for a moment before she tapped into Weibo. Entering Legend's homepage, Shiryao immediately saw the post that he had posted about 15 minutes ago. Thank you, AE, my teammates, and all of you. The PGI World League will be my final battlefield. I want to say that I'm leaving. I want to say that I'm coming. In just a short 10 minutes, the number of comments under the post had already exceeded 10,000. Shiryao tapped into it and took a look at the trending comments. Some were reluctant, some were sad, and some were happy. In fact, she had come to watch Legend's match today with the mentality of saying goodbye to the infatuation she had when she was young. But now that he was really going to retire, she couldn't help but feel a little sad. For a moment, her originally excited and passionate heart became a little depressed and sorrowful. Shiryao stared at Legend's Weibo for a while. She wanted to say a few words, but there were too many things she wanted to say in her heart. In the end, she could only reply with a few words, goodbye, my dreams. Weibo, Yao, Tit say, T say, T, to say, I, S, T, comma, T. T, T, D, T, T, Yao, T, T, He, Yeet Legend, King Legend, Teed, Teal Deep Legend, T. T, Yao only, T from T's only, T, Yao, Yao. Chapter 9:13. At 6:00, the match began punctually. Perhaps it was because it was Legend's final match. When AE team walked onto the stage, many people were shouting Legend in a frenzy. This was the last time they would be cheering for their beloved idol, and it was also the last time they would be cheering for their beloved idol live. In that instant, the outcome of the match didn't seem that important anymore. What was more important was to fully immerse oneself in the match. Due to the fact that it was an international tournament, the venue this time around was far grander than the previous two tournaments that Shiryao had seen. She looked at the exquisitely lit stage and Legend, who was standing not too far away from her, and memories of the past suddenly flashed across her mind. If not for Legend, she wouldn't have come into contact with PlayerUnknown's Battleground, and she wouldn't have met Mr. Numbers, Juice, and Expert. She wouldn't have learned of the many things that Lin Jiej had done for her through the game. Just half a year ago, during the match in Shenzhen, when she looked at Legend, she couldn't help but think of Lin Jiej several times. Back then, she still thought that she was blatantly defaming her Adonis. Today, looking at Legend at the tournament venue, she couldn't help but recall the past and her feelings back then. She found it a little hilarious, but at the same time, she also felt a little touched. While the bird's nest was bustling with activity, over at G University, many people had gone on dates, and those who weren't on dates had gone out to celebrate the holidays with their friends. The entire campus felt a little empty. Shiryao had gone to watch the tournament, He Tian and Jiang Yu had gone to watch a movie that was going to be released on Christmas Day, so Ling Wan was the only one left in the dormitory. Regardless of whether there was someone around or not, Ling Wan was always the one who could calm down the most. At this moment, she was holding a book in her hands, and just like how she usually did when everyone was shouting and yelling in the dormitory, she was focused on her book. The dormitory was very quiet, so quiet that she could hear people running and laughing along the corridors from time to time. She flipped through page after page of her book, and the more she read, the slower her speed became. Eventually, she would even glance at the time on her phone from time to time. 9:00, 9:20, 9:40, 10 o'clock. Christmas would be over in 2 hours. Outside the window, there was no sign of snow at all, except for the bone-chilling winter wind. In fact, not snowing was what she wanted, wasn't it? There was very little snow in winter in Beijing, not to mention on Christmas Day. It was a scene that only happened once in a blue moon. When she said those words to Liu Benlai, she was thinking that he wouldn't waste his time and life on her anymore, wasn't she? Reining in her drifting thoughts, Leng Yuan continued reading her book. When she saw the words raging inferno, her thoughts drifted away once more. Not too long ago, in the suburbs, the hot spring resort, the fire, that young man, and the voice that kept calling her name. It was as clear as day, as if it had just happened. There had been people who confessed to her, but he seemed to be the only one, right? Unbeknownst to Leng Yuan herself, her fingertips had already tightened around the book in her hands. Chapter 9:14. Hearing that voice, Leng Yuan subconsciously turned around and saw that it was really snowing heavily outside the window. How could this be? The weather forecast clearly said that it would be a sunny day. Leng Yuan frowned. After confirming that she wasn't seeing things, she stood up and ran to the window. Opening the window, she was greeted by the frigid weather. Leng Yuan, who was only wearing a thin pajamas, shuddered involuntarily. She reached out to catch a few flakes of snow. The snowflakes that landed on her fingertips didn't feel cold, nor did they melt upon contact with her body temperature. When Leng Yuan brought the snowflakes closer to her eyes, she was able to discern that they weren't snowflakes at all. They were foam that resembled snowflakes. It's not snow. It's fake snow. Who did this? It looks pretty realistic, as if it's really snowing. It's so beautiful. Ha, look, it's not snowing at the field. It's only snowing at our dormitory building. As more and more people opened their windows to watch the show, Leng Yuan seemed to have thought of something, and she looked around the building. As the fake snow was created using a foam machine, it didn't take long for the ground to be covered in white. Other than a few passers-by who kept raising their heads to take photos with a few female students, Leng Yuan immediately saw Liu Benlai standing at the bottom of the dormitory building. He was dressed in a red down jacket, and it looked particularly eye-catching amidst the white snow. He was wearing a Christmas hat that covered his bald head, and with his hands in his pockets, he was staring at her dormitory building. Due to the distance, they couldn't see each other's expressions clearly, but they knew that they were looking at each other. After some time, Leng Yuan saw Liu Benlai take out his phone, and her phone started ringing behind her. She knew that he was the one who called. She stood by the window and stared at him for a while before walking to her bed and picking up her phone. She swiped the screen and answered the call. She opened her mouth to speak, only to realize that her usual composure and self-control had been shattered. In the end, she decided to shut her mouth. Leng Yuan. Liu Benlai's voice sounded from the other end of the call. Leng Yuan didn't say a word. Instead, she raised her phone and walked back to the window. When he saw her from downstairs, he continued, "This snow is for you. Let's name her Leng Yuan. Do you like it?" Leng Yuan remained silent, but her fingers, which were holding onto her phone, were trembling slightly. "I know that you grew up in the south, so you've never seen snow before, but it's fine. Let's see something similar for now. When it really snows in Beijing one day, I'll treat you to the Forbidden City." Perhaps it was due to the cold, Liu Benlai's teeth were chattering as he spoke. "If you don't like it, I'll buy a ticket for you in advance, and you can find someone you like to accompany you. I've seen the Forbidden City once, and it's really beautiful. Especially when the sun shines down on the white world, it feels like a paradise on earth. It's much more beautiful than those scenes you see in television dramas." Chapter 9:15. Why you, get over here right now. Following the furious roar of the Educational Administration Department, Liu Benlei's yes voice sounded from the other side of the phone. Following which, Liu Benlei hurriedly spoke into the phone, Ling Yuan, Merry Christmas. Before Ling Yuan could say anything, Liu Benlei had already hung up the phone. Standing by the window, Ling Yuan watched as Liu Benlei scuttled over to the Educational Administration Department with his head drooped low as he endured his reprimand. Amidst the harsh reprimand from the Educational Administration Department, Ling Yuan raised her head to look at the snow falling from the sky. Not too long later, the snow finally stopped, and the Educational Administration Department stormed out angrily. Liu Benlei picked up a broom and began sweeping his masterpiece. Ling Yuan stared at the busy male student downstairs for a while before closing the windows and drawing the curtains. She then took out a set of clothes from the wardrobe and changed into them. After which, she went to the washroom to grab a broom before heading down. She had barely left the female dormitory, but before she could even sweep the floor, Liu Benlei's sharp eyes had already spotted her. Dragging the broom with him, he ran up to her and said, "I don't need your help. It's so cold here, you should hurry back to the dormitory. I can handle this alone." Seeing that Ling Yuan wasn't moving at all, Liu Benlei spoke up once more, "I'm serious. I really can handle this alone. Let me tell you, I've already thought of the consequences before I did this, so I prepared a broom beforehand. Look, isn't this broom of mine especially big? I bought it from Taobao. Your broom is way too small, so it'll really take forever to clean this place. Also, you don't need to worry about me, I won't freeze. I've even put on the long johns that I've treasured for so many years just for tonight." Liu Benlei. Before Liu Benlei could finish his words, Ling Yuan suddenly spoke up. Her voice was as calm as ever. "You win." Liu Benlei stared at Ling Yuan silently. Ling Yuan swallowed a mouthful of saliva and avoided his gaze. "That day at Golden Resplendence, I said that I'll consider you if it snows on Christmas Day." "You won." Liu Benlei's lips curled into a smile, and a gust of wind blew his Christmas hat to the ground. His hairless head fell into Ling Yuan's eyes. It was a comical sight, but for some reason, Ling Yuan couldn't help but feel envious. She turned her head away and heard him say, "Thank you for going easy on me, Ling Yuan." Without saying a word, Ling Yuan turned around and entered the dormitory with a broom in hand. As Liu Benlei watched her leave, his eyebrows shot up as he howled, "Don't worry, one day, I'll make sure that your surname is Liu." "Mrs. Liu." Ling Yuan paused for a moment, but she didn't turn around. At 10:45, the match ended. AE team won the PGI World League. The cheers in the Bird's Nest Stadium were deafening. Seated in her seat, Shuyao stared at the screen in the hall, and she suddenly recalled the words she had said to Legend back in Shenzhen. "Legend. It's none of your business. Whether you succeed now or fall into dire straits in the future, you'll always be the light that shines in my heart. I'm not your teammate, so I can't risk my life for you, but I can cheer for you. As long as it's your dream, it's my dream too. I want to be your little fangirl forever. Finally, I wish you all the best for the PGI World League. I hope that you can become the first world champion of PlayerUnknown's Battleground." Back then, just when everyone thought that Legend wouldn't say a word, he did, even though it was just a single word, "All right." But now, everything had come to fruition. Her blessings and his promise had come true. From now on, Legend would just be a legend, and her youthful dreams would just be a dream. Many of Legend's fans were shedding tears as this was the final match. Even Shiyao's eyes reddened. After leaving the Bird's Nest Stadium, Shuyao was unable to calm her raging emotions. The first thing that came to her mind was to look for Lin Jiej, but before she could call him, the phone in her bag suddenly rang. Chapter 9:16. Shiryao had no idea who the caller was, so she calmed her emotions down before taking out her phone. The caller was Lin Jiej, the person she was looking for. Shiryao quickly picked up the call, and before Lin Jiej could speak, she spoke up first. Lin Jiej, I'm fine. Before Shiryao could finish her words, Lin Jiej seemed to know what she was going to say, and he interrupted her. Yao Yao, where are you? Me. Shiryao glanced at the crowd that had mostly dispersed before replying. I just left the tournament venue. Did you come out from the north gate? Look straight ahead. The Four Seasons Hotel is on the other side of the road. Do you see it? Following Lin Jiej's instructions, Shiryao raised her head and looked ahead. Through the traffic on the street, she saw the logo of the hotel with a single glance. She nodded before replying, I see it. What's wrong? Come to the hotel, room 2101. Lin Jiej called her to the hotel. 3 seconds later, Shiryao came to a realization and asked, Lin Jiej, you're back in Beijing? When did you come back? Also, why didn't you call me when you were back? Even if you didn't call me, you could have just gone home. Why are you staying in a hotel? Shiryao asked a few questions, but before Lin Jiej could reply, she realized that she had gotten a little too agitated, so she quickly added, wait for me, we'll talk about it later. It had been more than 20 days since they last met, and Shiryao really missed Lin Jiej. Thus, the joy of their reunion temporarily washed away the heavy feelings that legend had brought to her. After hanging up the call, Shiryao didn't hesitate any longer and headed straight for the Four Seasons Hotel. Perhaps it was due to the proximity of the Four Seasons Hotel to the tournament venue, many professional teams chose to stay in this hotel. When Shiryao arrived at the entrance, she noticed that there were quite a number of people gathered outside. Many of them were holding placards that were filled with words of encouragement for their favorite teams. Shiryao didn't have a room card, so she couldn't head upstairs. Thus, when she reported her room to the front desk, the receptionist didn't bother asking any questions, nor did she inform Lin Jiej, who was upstairs. It was as if they had already made an appointment beforehand, and the receptionist immediately made a new room card for her. She stepped into the elevator, and along the way up, the doors opened one after another, and a few young men walked in. Shiryao recognized some of them as participants of the tournament. One of them was even from AE Squadron, and he was even wearing the uniform of AE Squadron. Not too long ago, he had worked together with Lin Jiej to eliminate a team in Jorgopal. As the elevator rose higher and higher, the number of people in it gradually decreased. In the end, only the professional player from AE team and Shiryao were left. When they reached the 21st floor, the elevator doors opened. As Shiryao walked out, the member of AE team followed closely behind her. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other, then walked along the corridor with suspicion in their hearts. The member of AE team stopped at the entrance of room 2103. When he swiped his room card to enter the room, he shot a glance at Shiryao. Seeing that she had stopped at the entrance of room 2101, not only did she not enter the room, she even craned her neck to look at Shiryao curiously. Shiryao had a room card in her hand, so without knocking on the door, she swiped it and entered the room. Chapter 9:17. After closing the door, Shiryao happily called out Lin Jiej before running back into the suite. She had intended to give Lin Jiej a longing hug as soon as she saw him, but barely after taking a few steps, she saw the figure standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with his back facing her. It was as if someone had struck her acupoints, and she suddenly froze on the spot. Even the words, "I miss you," that she was about to say disappeared from her throat before she could say a single word. Lin Jiej was the one who had called her to come to room 2101, but the person standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window was wearing the uniform of AE team. Even though she couldn't see the person's face clearly, Just the L on his back was enough to let her know that this was the Adonis whom she had admired, loved, followed, and believed in for many years, Legend. It was no wonder that the AE team member had been looking at her with a probing gaze when she was walking up the stairs. Thinking about it, this floor was filled with people from AE Club. He must be curious about who she was looking for. So, this wasn't Lin Jie's room but Legend's. Could it be that Lin Jie knew that she liked Legend before he returned to Beijing, so he prepared such a surprise for her so that she could get close to her Adonis? But, wasn't Lin Jie a little too ambitious? A man and woman alone in the middle of the night, not to mention, the person she had once been infatuated with. Wasn't he afraid that she would really plant grass all over his head? Even though she knew that she wouldn't do that, with such thoughts in mind, Shuyao turned to Legend, who had his back facing her, and said that. God LH hello. I am Shuyao. It's my boyfriend, Lin Jie, who asked me to come over. Legend, who had his back facing her, didn't say a word. The room was silent. For some reason, Shuyao felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward, so she spoke up once more. Well, congratulations, my idol. You've clinched the champion of the PGI World League. Your performance tonight was really cool, especially that triple kill in the final circle. But I did see your Weibo and the news that you're retiring. It's a little regretful, but no matter what, I hope that you'll have a clear conscience in the future. Shuyao said a lot of words, but Legend didn't respond at all. In the end, Shuyao couldn't find anything else to say anymore, so she closed her mouth. She felt that the atmosphere in the room became even more awkward. In any case, her Adonis wouldn't let anyone know what he looked like. Since she had already seen him, even if it was only his back view, it would still be enough to fulfill her wish. For the sake of Lin Jie's reputation, she should just leave. With such thoughts in mind, Shuyao broke the silence once more. Idol, it's Christmas today. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I still need to call my boyfriend, so I'll be taking my leave first. Bye-bye. After saying those words, Shuyao took 2 steps back, looking as if she was about to turn around and leave. Legend, who had been silent ever since Shuyao entered the room, suddenly spoke up. Wait a moment. The voice was very familiar, so familiar that Shuyao felt as if it was the person who had been sleeping beside her. Shuyao subconsciously halted her movements and stared at Legend. No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't believe that he was Lin Jie. Perhaps it was because she hadn't seen Lin Jie for a very long time that she was hallucinating earlier. Chapter 9:18. He was still wearing the same mask and baseball cap, making it impossible for others to see his face clearly. However, the current Legend gave Shuyao a strong sense of familiarity. For some reason, she felt that the person before her was Legend, but at the same time, he wasn't Legend. Legend didn't say a word. Instead, he began walking toward her. As he got closer and closer, the strong sense of familiarity grew even stronger. Legend stopped roughly a meter away from Shuyao. Shuyao couldn't tell whether it was her imagination or not, but she felt as if Legend's eyes were staring at her from beneath his baseball cap. She frowned slightly, but before she could say anything, the man before her suddenly raised his hand and placed it on his cap. Legend can't be intending to show me his real face, right? What's his motive for doing this? Is he interested in me? After all, he even prepared a ticket for the finals for me. With such thoughts in mind, Shuyao hurriedly spoke up, that. Adonis, I do admire you, but it's not the admiration of an idol. Do you know what that means? I already have a boyfriend, so before Shuyao could finish her words, Legend had already taken off his cap. Ah. That forehead, those eyes, those eyebrows, those hair. It's clear, Shuyao felt as if someone had smacked her with a stick. She stared blankly at the man before her, who was dressed in a combat uniform. After removing his cap, she saw with her own eyes that the man's slender fingers fell on his mask. Following which, the mask fell off, revealing a nose and mouth that she couldn't be more familiar with. That face sure is exquisite. It's as if it's a work of art crafted by God himself. Every inch of her skin and every facial feature was unbelievably perfect and unreal. That face sure is familiar. It's my boyfriend, Lin Jiej. Lin Jiej leisurely admired the dazed young lady before him. Roughly 3 minutes later, when he was sure that she had already digested this shocking news, he stretched out his hand and passed it over to Shi Yao. Let's get to know each other. I'm Legend, Shi Yao. Let's get to know each other. I'm Legend, this is Lin Jiej's voice, but he said that he's Legend. How is this possible? How can Lin Jiej be Legend? Did he know that she idolized Legend when she was young and was fulfilling her dreams? As countless thoughts flashed across Shi Yao's mind, she stared at Lin Jiej in a daze and asked, Lin Jiej, why did you impersonate my Adonis? Lin Jiej. The more Shi Yao thought about it, the more convinced she was that her guess was right. Lin Jiej, how much did you spend to rent this uniform for my Adonis? Lin Jiej, thank you for giving me such a Christmas surprise, but I think you should return the combat uniform. Lin Jiej. This wasn't in line with the script. Based on the script, shouldn't Soft Bun be agitated upon seeing that he was the Adonis whom she couldn't forget for many years? Shouldn't she be so moved that she would leap forward and hug him while shedding tears of gratitude? Lin Jiej, quickly return your uniform and change into your own clothes. Let's go for supper. I'm getting hungry from watching the match. Lin Jiej. Chapter 9:19. A slight frown appeared on his forehead, but he didn't reply to the person on the other end of the call. Instead, as if he had guessed something, he turned to Shi Yao and asked, Did you bump into someone from AE Squad on your way up? Shi Yao had no idea how Lin Jiej managed to guess it, and she was also curious as to why he would suddenly ask such a question. Thus, she nodded in response. Lin Jiej immediately understood what was going on. It was no wonder they were calling me non-stop. With this thought in mind, Lin Jiej brushed past Shi Yao's body, walked up to the door, and pulled it open. Ah, Peng, you're crushing me. Following the opening of the door, Shi Yao saw a few people crawling all over the floor. They were dressed in the exact same combat uniform as Lin Jiej, and they raised their heads to look at the lofty Lin Jiej before them with fawning smiles on their faces. Ah! Why would someone from AE Squad be eavesdropping at the door? As this thought flashed across Shi Yao's mind, she heard the people at the door speaking up one after another. Captain, Captain, how did you know that we were at the door? Captain. Who's that person? Isn't it sister-in-law? Captain. Is he referring to Lin Jiej? So, I've misunderstood. Is Lin Jiej really a legend? Just as Shi Yao was digesting this shocking news, the male student who had taken the elevator with her suddenly leaped up to her and greeted, Sister-in-law, nice to meet you. Following which, the rest of the group got up from the floor and scrambled over to Shi Yao's side. Sister-in-law, nice to meet you. Sister-in-law, what's your name? Captain sure is something. He actually managed to hide it from us for so long. It's no wonder he kept peeking at his phone during the training over the past 20 days. He must have been sending a message to sister-in-law. These people were simply too passionate, so much so that Shi Yao didn't know how to deal with them. In the end, she could only turn a pleading gaze toward Lin Jiej. Seeing Shi Yao's gaze, Lin Jiej cleared his throat. In an instant, the chattering male students around Shi Yao fell silent. Now that you've seen me, can we leave now? Following Lin Jiej's words, the crowd chuckled gleefully before dispersing and leaving room 2101. It was only after the door closed and silence returned to the room that Shi Yao's gaze finally fell on Lin Jie. She stared at him for a long while before she finally asked a question that she found hard to believe. Lin Jie, are you really my Adonis? Yes. Then. Adonis, are you really my boyfriend, Lin Jie? Lin Jie was rendered speechless for a moment. He raised his wrist to take a look at the time, and as if he was calculating something, he said, Yao Yao. I'll go wash my hair first. You should digest this news first. Before Shi Yao could respond, Lin Jie had already entered the bathroom. After a while, the sound of running water came from the bathroom. When the sound of flowing water finally stopped, a thought suddenly came to Lin Jie's mind. While wiping his dripping hair with a towel, he pulled open the bathroom door and said, Yao Yao, I've prepared a present for you. It's in the coat pocket by the floor-to-ceiling window. Go and take it yourself. Chapter 9:20. With a single glance, she saw Lin Jie's jacket lying on the sofa in front of the French window. She bent down to pick up Lin Jie's jacket, only to realize that it was a little heavy. She felt around the pockets, and in the inner pocket of the jacket, she found an exquisite velvet box. Opening it, she saw a sparkling diamond ring inside. Compared to the ring she'd proposed to him at Golden Resplendence, the diamond on this ring was like a pigeon's egg. Based on her understanding of the value of diamonds, if she were to wear this ring out, it would be as good as carrying a mansion in the heart of Beijing with her wherever she went. While Shi Yao was still in a daze, Lin Jie's voice suddenly sounded in her ears, Yao Yao. Shi Yao turned her gaze over, only to see Lin Jie, who had at some point washed his hair and blown it back into a beautiful hairstyle. Holding a bouquet of fresh flowers in his hands, he was walking toward her. It was only when he finally stopped in front of her that she finally straightened her body in a daze. She stared at him and moved her lips, but no sound came out. He stared into her eyes and said, the match in Shenzhen back in August was supposed to be the final match of my professional career, but because a woman told me that she hoped that I could clinch the championship of the Winter PGI World League, I chose to fight another match without any hesitation. In the previous matches, I fought for my passion, for the club, for my teammates, and for the fans who supported me. But for tonight's match, I didn't fight for anyone but that woman. When I posted on Weibo that I wanted to say that I was leaving, it was meant for Myriad Worlds. As for the latter part, I wanted to say that I was coming, it was meant for that woman. To Myriad Worlds, a legend is just a legend from now on, but to that woman, the legend belongs to her alone from now on. The woman told me that she's going to bid farewell to my childhood dream, and I replied to her with a goodbye. The woman told me that we'll never meet again, and I told her that we'll meet again later on. The girl also told me that almost all girls have a teenage dream of being with their idol. But all girls know that it's just a dream and it won't come true. After all, it's rare to see someone become Mrs. J. Chow's wife, and today, I want to ask you, such a rare opportunity has been placed in front of you. Are you willing to take it? Will you marry me? Yes, of course I'm willing, Shi Yao nodded vehemently without any hesitation. Lin Jie put down the flowers in his embrace and took the diamond ring from her hand before slowly putting it on her finger. In the process of putting the ring on her finger, Shi Yao suddenly recalled the words that Lin Jie had said to her that night, I've walked with you through your youth. The meaning behind those words was clear. He was telling her that even though he hadn't walked with her through her youth as Lin Jie, he had always been by her side as a legend. The dream of her youth, the dream that she always thought she didn't dare to come true, was fulfilled by him. To her, Lin Jie was the best Lin Jie in the world. After putting on the ring, Lin Jie stood up, and Shi Yao abruptly leaped into his embrace and hugged him tightly. He had moved her a lot, but at this very moment, she couldn't help but feel touched once more. She leaned against his chest, crying and laughing at the same time. She also felt embarrassed, but she just couldn't control her emotions. She felt that there were many things that she wanted to say to him, but she just couldn't think of anything at the moment. She lost her composure and cried, laughed, and cried. She hugged onto him as if she had gone mad for a long while. Eventually, she leaned into his embrace and raised her head to look at him. With tears in her eyes, she chuckled and said, "Lin Jie, I'm so happy that I can finally cuckold you without any qualms. Legend, you have to be careful. You might be exposed on the news tomorrow for sleeping with a fan." 2 years later. Chapter 921. 2 years later. It was winter once more. Lin Jie was away on a business trip, and Shuyao had lessons in the morning, so she spent the night in school. When she woke up the next morning, she received a WeChat message from Lin Jie. "Yao Yao, I'm done with my work, and I've booked an early flight back to Beijing. I might have to head to the company for a meeting, so I'll pick you up at school in the afternoon." After reading the message, Shuyao took a look at the time Lin Jie had sent the message. It was 5:30 am. Most likely, he was on the way to the airport when he sent the message. Shuyao replied with an emoji before climbing out of bed to wash up. When she came out of the bathroom, she took a look at her phone. Lin Jie didn't reply to her message, so she thought that he was probably hovering at an altitude of 30,000 feet. "I have an entire morning of lessons today, so I'll be revising with Tian at the cafe next to the school. You can come to the cafe to look for me." After sending the message, Shuyao quickly tidied herself up, grabbed her textbooks, and headed to the cafeteria for breakfast before heading to class. After her afternoon lesson, Shuyao took out her phone and saw Lin Jie's reply. After chatting with Lin Jie for a while, she heard Jiang Yu and the others calling her for lunch, so she quickly grabbed her things and left the classroom. By the time she arrived at the school's cafeteria, it was already filled with people. Most of them were unfamiliar but energetic faces. Looking at this scene, Tian couldn't help but remark, in the blink of an eye, we're already in year 4, becoming the oldest people in the school. Back then, we were just like them, shouting and laughing in the cafeteria, not caring about how others looked at us. Indeed. Back then, the one we talked about the most in the cafeteria was Senior Lin. But now, the Adonis of the freshmen have all changed. Jiang Yu sighed. Ling Wan, who had been silent all this while, looked at the bustling scene before her with a calm voice. "Even if the Adonis of the freshmen have changed, they're still from Yao Yao's family." That's right, that's right. Yao Yao's family is really a Adonis maker. Back then, our Adonis, Senior Lin, became Yao Yao's boyfriend, and now, the new Adonis are Yao Yao's cousins. Tian, who had always judged good people based on their appearance, couldn't help but widen her eyes upon mentioning Gu Nanqiang. Speaking of Gu Nanqiang, the Adonis that Lord Ji was full of praises for, Shuyao couldn't help but feel a little confused. What was so handsome about Gu Nanqiang? There were actually so many little girls who were infatuated with him. Moreover, this rascal was sloppy and playful. He changed girlfriends like a girl playing a game of changing clothes. Until now, she couldn't even remember how many girls had called her sister sweetly. More importantly, these fangirls of Gu Nanqiang probably didn't know that this rascal had handed in blank papers all the way from middle school to high school, right? The more Tian spoke, the more agitated she became. "Say, why didn't I go with Yao Yao to fetch Junior Gu on the day he entered the school? If I were to go with Yao Yao to pick him up, perhaps I would be in a favorable position to enjoy the moonlight first. Now I have already fallen in love with Junior Gu. I really regret it, but, you don't say, Yao Yao's family's genes are really good, Junior Gu and Yao Yao's eyebrows are really alike. Gu Nanqiang looks like me. Alright then. I'll admit that he's the current leader of G University's looks. Chapter 922. Jiangyu, Tian, I've recorded your words. I'll send it to Desolate Year later. He Tian, Jiangyu, why you dare? If you dare to send it, I'll send the photo I took of you taking off your bra last night to your buddy. Watching Jiang Yu and He Tian bickering, Shi Yao and Leng Wan couldn't help but smile. Then, Shi Yao couldn't help but mutter softly, I'm afraid we won't get to see such a beautiful scene in the future. Leng Wan heard Shi Yao's words and understood what she meant. Indeed. It's going to be our final exams in less than a month's time, and after the spring festival, we'll all be busy with our internships. After that, we'll all be going our separate ways. Hearing their words, He Tian and Jiang Yu stopped bickering. Instead, they turned to look at Shi Yao and Leng Wan. Jiang Yu, I've already told my parents that I won't be returning to my hometown. I'll be staying in Beijing, and my buddy has promised me that he'll keep an eye out for jobs for me. Once I find a good internship, I'll settle down in Beijing. He Tian, I'm not going back either. I'll be staying in Beijing too. Hasn't Senior Lu already bought a house in Beijing? Nuan, you'll be staying in Beijing too, right? So, the four of us will be staying in the same city. Even after we graduate, we won't be separated. Jiang Yu, that's right, we'll still be together. Speaking of which, Senior Lin has already proposed to Yao Yao. It should be about time for the wedding ceremony after we graduate, right? What about you, Nuan? When are you going to settle your engagement with Senior Lu? Hearing Jiang Yu's words, Leng Nuan's fingers trembled slightly, but her tone remained as calm as ever, we'll see. As if afraid that everyone would continue asking her about this topic, she spoke up once more, hurry up and get your food. If you don't go now, all the good food will be snatched up by others. After lunch, Leng Wan didn't return to the dormitory. Instead, she headed straight to the entrance of the school. She had an appointment with Liu Benlai to watch a movie that afternoon. Jiang Yu and Leng Wan headed to the entrance of the school together. She also had an appointment with her buddy of 2 years, Lin Jiej's childhood friend, Liang Jusi, to the comic exhibition in the afternoon. In truth, both He Tian and Shi Yao had an appointment, but it was a little late. So, the two of them returned to their dormitory room to rest for a while before heading to a cafe near the academy with their textbooks. Shi Yao said that she was here to revise, but after sitting down, she really put on her noise-canceling earphones and started to work on her questions. On the other hand, He Tian was holding onto her phone and chatting with her friends. Looking at Luo Ruoxin's expression, Shi Yao didn't need to ask to know that she was chatting with Desolate Year. Less than half an hour later, He Tian suddenly reached out to take off Shi Yao's earphones and said, Yao Yao, I might have to leave you alone here. I'm going to the market to buy some groceries. I have a date with Year of Desolation to have hot pot tonight. Shi Yao waved the brush in her hand, gesturing for her to leave. He Tian gave Shi Yao a peck before leaving with the book exactly the way she'd brought it back. Shi Yao put on her earphones, picked up her pen, and continued scribbling on the paper. Unknowingly, time passed by slowly. Chapter 923. Shi Yao's pen suddenly froze on the spot. She stared at the cup of milk tea for 3 seconds before raising her head, only to see an unfamiliar man standing right beside the table she was leaning on. Shi Yao frowned as she took off her earphones. Before she could ask, "May I know who you are?" the man had already flashed a radiant smile at Shi Yao. "Senior Shi Yao, I'm Gao Hui. I'm a freshman from the computer science faculty." As he spoke, his face reddened slightly. He pointed to the cup of hot milk tea beside Shi Yao's hand and said, "Senior, the milk tea in your cup is already cold. Why don't you drink this hot one instead?" To be honest, Shi Yao had encountered such a scene many times in the past, but in the past year, she hadn't encountered such a situation very often. Initially, when she got together with Lin Jiej, there were still quite a few male students in G University who kept sending her messages, hoping to woo her. But a year ago, there was a male student who pestered her so much that she even went all the way to the Lin family's old residence. Before she could go crazy from being pestered by that male student, her boyfriend, Lin Jiej, was the first to go crazy from jealousy. After that male student pestered her once more and followed her to the Beijing World Hotel, where Lin Jiej followed him to the washroom. As it was the men's washroom, Shuyao wasn't too sure what happened inside. But in the end, the male student was taken away by the police, and the reason was that Lin Jiej said that the male student was harboring ill intentions toward him in the washroom. When the police arrived, they were rendered speechless by Lin Jiej's words. However, Lin Jiej continued with his argument. Harassing a woman was considered sexual harassment, but harassing a man wasn't. Thus, the police officers who had been rendered speechless by Lin Jiej could only impartially take the young man away to the police station to investigate the matter. Of course, the matter eventually reached the school, and even the school leaders were alerted. Even though no one knew the details of the matter, the male student had been avoiding Shuyao ever since then. He even warned all of the male students in G University that they could fall in love with anyone but Shuyao. After all, they couldn't afford to offend Lin Jiej. All in all, ever since that incident, Shuyao's surroundings had become a lot quieter. Senior Gao Hui, who had rushed over to strike up a conversation with Shuyao, noticed that she wasn't saying a word, so he couldn't help but speak up once more. Shuyao hurriedly reined in her thoughts and thanked the man before taking out her wallet from her bag. "I'll be keeping the milk tea. Just take it that you bought it for me. Here, take the money." The boy shook his head. "Senior, I don't want money." As he spoke, he glanced at Shuyao's phone on the table before raising his finger and pointing at it lightly. "Senior, can I add you on WeChat?" Shuyao didn't respond to the male student's question. Instead, she raised her right hand to show the 8-digit diamond ring to the male student and asked, "Junior, do you know what this means?" "Hi, I know, but I still want to be friends with you." How could this child be so stubborn? He already knew that she had a fiancé, yet he still refused to give up. Shuyao twirled the pen in her hand as she asked the male student, "Then, do you know what the first unspoken rule of entering G University is?" Chapter 924. These words were written by the man whom Lin Jiej had sent to the police station for sexual harassment back then. It had been more than a year since then, but every time Shuyao heard these words, she still couldn't help but burst into laughter. "So, Junior, are you sure that you still want to add my WeChat?" The man was already starting to give up, but after a moment of hesitation, he still mustered his courage and said, "Senior, I'm sure." "It can't be, right? You're still unwilling to give up?" Could it be that she really had to use her trump card? Shuyao pondered for a moment before picking up her phone and sending a message to Lin Jiej. "Where are you?" Soon, Shuyao received Lin Jiej's reply, "I'll be there soon." Shuyao didn't reply to Lin Jiej's message. Instead, she opened up the conversation between the two of them and showed it to the man. "Junior, Lin Jiej will be here soon." Shortly after Shuyao said those words, another line of text appeared on her phone screen. "Yao Yao, I've already parked my car. I'm heading to the cafe now." As if frightened by something, the man raised his head to look at the street outside the window. A second later, he picked up the cup of milk tea in front of Shuyao and fled in a hurry without saying a word. Due to his hasty escape, the man nearly knocked into a chair. Looking at his fleeing silhouette, Shuyao couldn't help but burst into laughter. "What are you laughing at?" An elegant and pleasant voice suddenly sounded from behind Shuyao. She subconsciously wanted to turn around to take a look, but before she could do so, a warm, large hand had already placed itself on her head and rubbed it lightly. Following which, the chair beside her was pulled back by a pair of beautiful hands, and the sound of the chair rubbing against the floor echoed softly as Lin Jiej sat down beside her. Upon seeing Lin Jiej, Shiryao shook her head and said, "It's nothing." Lin Jiej didn't say anything, but his eyes were filled with disbelief. "It's just that I thought of a saying earlier." Shiryao's eyes darted around for a moment before she leaned over to Lin Jiej's ear and whispered, "Mister, I don't want to knock into a wall anymore. I don't want to knock into your heart anymore." Hearing those words, Lin Jiej's mood immediately lightened up. Seeing that the look of disbelief on the man's face had disappeared without a trace, Shiryao picked up her brush and said, "Give me a moment. I'll finish the last few questions first before we leave." Shiryao paused for a moment as she recalled how Lin Jiej would give her the answer as soon as she saw the question. Before she could even think of an answer, he would immediately answer it. She turned to glare at Lin Jiej and said, "Right, you're not allowed to speak." Lin Jiej nodded his head in response. After which, Shiryao began to immerse herself in answering the question. Afraid that he would blurt out the answer after seeing the question, Lin Jiej looked around the room. There were quite a few males who unintentionally glanced in their direction, but Lin Jiej would mistake them for Shiryao, and he would glare at them with a deep frown. Then, the boys in the cafe seemed to be afraid that they would get into trouble. One by one, then another, looking at the bawling coffeehouse owner, Shiryao couldn't help but feel sorry for him, so she decided to give up on answering the questions. She closed the paper and nudged Lin Jiej, saying, "Let's go, let's go. Let's head back to the old manor to meet Grandpa." At the same time, in the study on the first floor of the Lin family's old manor, Auntie's son, who had been called in by Grandpa Lin, followed his instructions and closed the door before calling out to Grandpa Lin, "Old Mister." Grandpa Lin beckoned Auntie's son over, and when Auntie's son came closer, he asked, "How are the preparations going?" Chapter 9:25. Grandpa Lin beckoned Auntie's son over. When Auntie's son came closer, he asked, "How are the preparations going?" "Auntie's son, everything is ready. Be it the old manor, the things in young master's room, or the things in young master's apartment, I've already tampered with them." Naturally, Grandpa Lin knew what Auntie's son was referring to. Even though everything was going according to his plan, he still couldn't help but ask worriedly, "You didn't make any mistakes, did you?" "Auntie's son, I didn't. I followed your instructions and inserted a needle in the most inconspicuous part of the packaging. Besides, old mister, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be in the mood to inspect it carefully when you're using it. Indeed, you're right. I've always remembered that brat Lin Jiej's ploy 2 years ago, and I've been enduring it for 2 whole years. I've been enduring it to the point where I'm about to go moldy. But now that Yao Yao is about to graduate, this period of time should be Yao Yao's ovulation period. If everything goes smoothly, I should be able to hear the good news from Yao Yao's womb during the spring festival." As Grandpa Lin spoke, he couldn't help but chuckle to himself. "Look at the words I've chosen. What do you think? Isn't it great? Auntie's son, I'll leave it to you. Which word do you think is suitable for my great-grandson's name?" Auntie's son leaned forward to take a look at the piece of paper that Grandpa Lin was pointing at. It was filled with black words. Even if there weren't 100 of them, there were at least 80 of them. It was just a name for the young master, so why did Grandpa Lin prepare so many words for it? Grandpa Lin stared at the words that he had painstakingly selected from the Xinhua dictionary over the past 2 years with a satisfied look on his face. Then, he noticed the troubled look on Auntie's son's face, so he waved his hand in a show of benevolence. "Forget it, it's my fault. My question earlier was too difficult for you, so I'll assign you something simple to do instead. You can start preparing the baby's belongings now. Remember, you have to choose the best of everything. Also, Yao Yao and Jiej's wedding has to be pushed forward as well. Back when they were still in school, they refused to hold a wedding, but now that Yao Yao is about to graduate, we have to hold a wedding as soon as possible. Otherwise, others will say that Yao Yao is following Jiej without a proper title. We can suffer any injustice, but we can't let Yao Yao suffer. Also, remember to have the kitchen prepare some nutritious food every day and send it to Jiej. From now on, Yao Yao is no longer the same as before. You have to serve her carefully. Treat her as if she's 2, no, 3, no, 10 men. Old sir, don't worry. I've already remembered all of this. You've been telling me about it many times in the past 2 years. Auntie Sun, you're getting more and more outrageous. Are you saying that I'm nagging? No, no, no. Sir, how would I dare? I'm sure that you wouldn't dare to. As Grandpa Lin spoke, he repeated what he had said earlier once more before waving his hand and allowing Auntie Sun to leave. There was a slight traffic jam on the way back from the academy, so by the time they arrived, it was already 6:30. Chapter 9:26. Still worried, Shurya went to ask Auntie Sun if Grandpa Lin was feeling unwell. Auntie Sun, who had accompanied Grandpa Lin to the backyard to play golf, knew that Grandpa Lin wanted nothing more than for his great-grandson to pop out of Shuryao's womb right now, so he was intentionally buying time for Lin Jiej and Shuryao. However, Auntie Sun didn't dare to say that Grandpa Lin isn't feeling unwell. He's probably tired from playing golf in the afternoon. Hearing this answer, Shuryao felt relieved. Auntie Sun then asked, Miss Shur, will you be staying with young Master Lin at the old manor tonight? Shuryao turned to Lin Jiej, but Lin Jiej shook his head in response. In that instant, Auntie Sun couldn't help but feel impressed by old Mr. Lin. Sure enough, the older the ginger, the wiser the ginger. Old Mr. Lin knew that it wasn't guaranteed that he would succeed by messing around in the Lin family manor, so he sent Shuryao to deliver some food to the Lin family manor on the pretext that the young master had just returned from his business trip. At the same time, she also tampered with the items in the young master's bedside cabinet. While Grandpa Lin was resting, Lin Jiej and Shuryao didn't linger in the old manor for too long, so they returned to Lin Jiej's apartment. While Shuryao and Lin Jiej had been together for 2 years, these 2 years felt no different from 2 months. Nothing had changed between them, and they were still as lovey-dovey as when they first got together. This made it so that no matter if it was Lu Benlai, Xie Shangzhou, or even Desolate Year and Liang Jusi, none of them were willing to have a meal alone with the two of them. Lin Jiej had been away for a week, and as the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. On the night of his return, he couldn't help but do some indescribable things. Xie Shangzhou had been working by Lin Jiai's side for 2.5 years now. Over the past 2.5 years, he rarely took any leave. Even when Lin Jiai was busy with work during the holidays, he would still work overtime with her. However, in the past few days, Xie Shangzhou had used up his annual leave. His younger sister was getting married, so he had to attend the wedding. Xie Shangzhou had 10 days of annual leave, and after his younger sister's wedding, he still had a week of leisure time. He had planned to accompany his parents for a week, but due to his younger sister's marriage, he didn't have a girlfriend at all. His parents grumbled about him from the moment he opened his eyes to the moment he closed his eyes at night, and Xie Shangzhou couldn't take it anymore. Eventually, he booked a ticket to a nearby city and decided to go on a solo vacation. Xie Shangzhou took the train. When he arrived, it was already midnight. He checked in at the hotel he had booked in advance, ordered takeout, and went to bed after filling his stomach. Because he was on vacation, he deliberately turned off the alarm that was always on. He thought he could sleep until he woke up naturally, but in the end, he received more than 10 calls in the morning. Special Assistant Xia, how do you brew the tea that President Lin wants? In the past, she would be fine when I made tea, but today, I've made it 18 times, and she can find fault with it every time. Special Assistant Xia, what does Boss Lin need to prepare to meet the client? It's not like I haven't gone with her before, but today, she kept saying that I didn't do this well and that well. Special Assistant Xia, when are you coming back? Our secretarial office can't hold on any longer. In the end, Xia Shangzhou's phone rang a second after he hung up. That's strange. Why is the she-devil's temper so weird today? Chapter 927. It was no wonder why the demoness was so furious today. It turned out that it was the anniversary of Qin Ting's death. The first year, on the anniversary of Qin Ting's death, Lin Jie had gotten herself drunk at Little Junior's and Boss's singles party. The second year, on the anniversary of Qin Ting's death, Lin Jie had gone to the bar alone and drank herself into oblivion. If not for the fact that the bartender had picked up his call and noticed that something was amiss, she would have probably been taken away by those men who harbored ill intentions that night. The third year, which was today, while Xia Shangzhou was deep in thought, his phone rang once more. He picked it up, and the new intern secretary was already crying. Assistant Xia, Boss Lin told me not to brew the tea properly, so I told her to scram later. Woo woo woo. Through the intern secretary's cries, Xia Shangzhou could also hear the sound of things being smashed and Lin Jie's furious roars. While he couldn't hear what Lin Jie was saying, he could sense that the scene before him was probably terrifying to the extreme. Assistant Xia, what should I do? I'm really at my wit's end. It's only been 2 hours, and Boss Lin has already smashed 2 desks. Hearing the intern secretary's words once more, Xia Shangzhou recovered from his daze and said, Little Qin, don't cry and don't enter the office. I'll book a flight back to Beijing right now. Before you return, I'll call someone over for you. As long as that person goes over, the demoness, no matter how bad Boss Lin's temper is, she'll be able to rein it in. The intern secretary was still crying, but she didn't forget to gossip. Assistant Lin, who is the person you're talking about? Xia Shangzhou, you'll know when you see him later. After hanging up the call, Xia Shangzhou immediately sent a distress message to Shi Yao, Little Junior, call Little Junior. However, the person who replied to his message was Lin Jie. Little Junior is bathing. Xia Shangzhou. Bloody hell, am I sending myself to be abused? Taking a deep breath, Xia Shangzhou decided to swallow his anger and said, Boss, the handsome and rich boss, I would like to borrow Little Junior for a moment. Is that possible? Lin Jie. Lin Jie, do you want to die? No, no, no. Boss, you've misunderstood. What I mean is that I'm not borrowing Little Junior on your behalf, I won't lend it either. I knew it would be like this. Xia Shangzhou was straightforward. Today is the anniversary of Qin Ting's death. The other side was silent for a while, and then Xia Shangzhou received a message. Got it, I'll bring Yao Yao over later. Xia Shangzhou replied with a thank God emoji and then began to book the plane tickets. There were only first-class seats left on the earliest flight back to Beijing. The price is a little expensive. Xia Shangzhou gritted his teeth, entered the password, paid the amount, and then packed his things to rush to the airport. When Xia Shangzhou arrived in Beijing, he did not even return home. Instead, he dragged his suitcase and rushed to the Lin Enterprise building. By the time he arrived, it was already 1 in the afternoon. Lin Jie was currently on her lunch break, and Lin Jie and Shi Yao had already left. Upon seeing Zhang Xian, the people from the secretarial office reacted as if they had seen a living Buddha. They praised him while tossing the documents that Lin Jie had requested in the afternoon to him before returning to their respective posts. Chapter 928. Just as Xia Shangzhou had expected, Lin Jie had already woken up. She was seated at her desk with a deep frown on her face. Back when he first started his internship with Lin Jie, he was really afraid of her. Every time he saw her, he would want to run away. But now, Xia Shangzhou was able to calmly place a cup of coffee in front of Lin Jie and say, "Boss Lin, there's a video conference in 20 minutes. You can go and touch up your makeup now. I've already prepared the documents for the conference, and they're all here." Lin Jie picked up the cup of coffee and took a sip. It was her favorite flavor. She flipped open the documents that Xia Shangzhou had prepared, and it was clear and concise. It was her favorite style. The fury in her eyes dissipated in an instant. "Aren't you on your annual leave?" "Ah. My younger sister just got married, and my parents kept urging me to get married. I couldn't take it anymore, so I came back to work." Xia Shangzhou hid the fact that he was planning to go on a vacation, but before he could do so, he was called back to Beijing. Lin Jie replied with an "oh" as she drank another half a cup of coffee before heading to the bathroom to touch up her makeup. Xia Shangzhou backed out of Lin Jie's office to deal with the client meeting after the video conference. At 3:30 p.m., Lin Jie's conference was over, and she had to meet the client. Xia Shangzhou had already prepared a car in advance, and he even left a pair of flats in the car so that Lin Jie could return to the car after meeting the client. It would make her feet more comfortable in high heels. Since Xia Shangzhou had returned, it went without saying that he would be accompanying Lin Jie to meet with the client. Before leaving the office, Xia Shangzhou took a look at the temperature of the night and noted that it was a little cold. So, he headed over to Lin Jie's closet and took out a down jacket and a blanket, as well as a few heaters and water bottles. After which, Xia Shangzhou returned to his desk. While he was grabbing his phone and wallet, he didn't forget to open the drawer and grab a box of stomach medicine and hangover medicine. Lin Jie was afraid of the cold, but she wanted to maintain her poise instead of warmth. She would often suffer from excruciating pain during those few days of the month, but she didn't learn from it. Her stomach wasn't very good, and she always liked to eat spicy food. Sometimes, she would suddenly have a stomachache, and then the stomach medicine would become a regular item in his desk drawer. As for the hangover medicine, as long as Lin Jie was with him, he wouldn't allow her to drink alcohol. Even if she was forced to drink at a social event, the culprit would be him. As such, he usually prepared the hangover medicine for himself. However, today was different. It was the anniversary of Enchanting's death, so there was no doubt that Lin Jie would be drinking. Thus, he prepared some hangover medicine in advance so that she wouldn't suffer from a terrible hangover the next day. Xia Shangzhou had prepared everything he needed, so no matter how hot-tempered Lin Jie was, she still managed to tame herself. It was almost 7:00 in the evening by the time he finished meeting the clients. Lin Jie didn't have any social engagements today, or to be more precise, she wouldn't have any social engagements on this day every year. Xia Shangzhou knew that Lin Jie would go for a drink after parting ways with him, so he took the initiative to suggest, "Boss Lin, since you don't have much on today, why don't you head to WIKS? It's a new bar opened by Liang Jusi, and I heard that it's quite a good bar." With everything under Xia Shangzhou's control, Lin Jie nodded her head and said, "All right." It was still early, so there weren't many people at WIKS. Liang Jusi wasn't around either, but the waiter recognized Xia Shangzhou and Lin Jie, so he arranged the best and most secluded seats for them. Chapter 929. The two of them sat quietly on their respective seats, drinking their wine. After a long time, Lin Jie suddenly raised her head and asked Xia Shangzhou, "Navigator, how old are you?" "I'm a year older than boss." "That means you're 2 years younger than me." Lin Jie's lips curled up into a light smile, but her eyes shone brilliantly. Wimpy brat. Wimpy brat. That's even worse than navigator. Hey, little brother, have you ever liked someone before? Xie Shangzhou. Little brother. That's even worse than wimpy brat. Xie Shangzhou fell silent for a moment before shaking his head. No. He used to think that little junior sister was his goddess, but that kind of feeling, let alone liking her, he couldn't even say that his heart was moved. Hearing Xie Shangzhou's reply, Lin Jiayi gulped down a huge cup of wine in disappointment. I thought that you already have someone you like. At least I'll be able to listen to your story. As she spoke, Lin Jiayi glanced at her wine glass and stroked it lightly with her fingertips. I once liked someone, and I liked him very, very much. I liked him so much that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. Xie Shangzhou knew that Lin Jiayi was talking about Qin Ting, but he feigned ignorance and asked, what happened after that? After that, he died. He died in a car accident 8 years ago. It was a car that fell off a cliff, and not even his bones were left behind, so that's how he died. Xie Shangzhou squeezed the wine cup in his hand. Boss Lin, my condolences. If he were still alive, he would surely wish for you to be happy. I was very happy. I thought that earning money would make me happy, so I've been earning money like a madman all these years. I thought that buying and buying would make me happy, so I've been working hard to buy and buy all these years. I'll only allow myself to be sad for one day, and that day is today. Of the 4 of them in room 501, Xie Shangzhou knew that he was the most clumsy one. He had no idea how he should console Lin Jiayi, so he pondered for a moment before saying, Boss Lin, you'll meet better people in the future. I meet good people every day. You see, there are so many people chasing after me. It's not like you don't know that they are all good people, but, do you know? Navigator, after he left, I never thought about getting married. I just wanted to spend the rest of my life alone. When Xie Shangzhou heard this, he smiled. Boss Lin, you won't be alone for the rest of your life. I'll be with you. Lin Jiayi thought that Xie Shangzhou was joking with her, so she chuckled softly. A moment later, she said, Navigator, even though those are just words of consolation, I still have to thank you for it. As she spoke, Lin Jiayi stared at the GPS and continued, I think that what your parents said is right. You're not young anymore, so it's about time for you to find a good girl, get into a good relationship, and live a good life. Xie Shangzhou said nothing and only smiled. Lin Jiayi poured herself another cup of wine and said, Navigator, I'll keep an eye out for you. I'll introduce you to some good girls when I meet them. Xie Shangzhou did not refuse. Thank you, he said. Lin Jiayi didn't say a word. Instead, she continued to pour cup after cup of wine down her throat. Xie Shangzhou didn't say anything else either. He knew that she would get drunk, so he tried his best to restrain himself. He wasn't looking at her. His eyes were fixed on the window, but her silhouette was reflected in the window. Chapter 930. Gazing at her silhouette, he muttered in his heart, No, I don't have a girl I like. I have someone I love. But the person I love, I'm not worthy of her. So, I'll accompany her forever. If she wants to die alone, I'll accompany her until the end of her life. Before 10 o'clock, Lin Jiayi was already dead drunk. Xie Shangzhou sent her home, and just like usual, he cleaned up the messy house before heading to the kitchen to cook a pot of porridge to keep it warm. After which, he sent a message to Lin Jiayi reminding her to drink it the next morning before hailing a cab back to his rented apartment. It was already 3 in the morning. Xie Shangzhou took a shower and laid on his bed. Just as he was about to sleep, his phone suddenly lit up. Picking it up, he saw that it was a message. Mr. Xia, I am really sincere in inviting you to jump ship to my company. If you are not satisfied with the annual salary I gave you last time of 10 million, then I can double it and give you the company's shares. I can also give you the right to speak in the company." Without any hesitation, Xie Shangzhou rejected the offer. "There's no need for that. Thank you for your kindness. Mr. Xia, based on what I know, the salary that Boss Lin offers you is only average. Given your capabilities, it's a little overkill for you to stay by her side as her assistant. You've been by her side for so many years, but you can't even afford a house in Beijing. The salary I'm offering you is really acceptable. Why don't you state your conditions and I'll consider it?" "I don't have any conditions. I won't jump ship." After replying, Xie Shangzhou blocked the other party's message and put down his phone. Lying on the single bed in his rented apartment, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. After her final examinations, Shuyao began looking for an internship. Ever since she was young, her dream was to become a teacher. Thus, the positions she applied for were all teachers. Finally, Shuyao's internship was an English teacher at Ji University's affiliated high school. However, due to the approaching winter break, Shuyao's internship was scheduled to be after the Spring Festival. After the Lantern Festival, it was almost time for Shuyao to go to work. Having never lectured before, she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. So, before reporting to the academy, she used Lin Jiej as a guinea pig and attempted to conduct 2 classes. However, the results weren't too good. In the end, as she was lecturing, she ended up falling asleep with the students. Not long after the Spring Festival, spring arrived. After half a month of internship, Shuyao was already able to handle the students with ease. She had a good personality, was beautiful, and taught the top class of the school, so she really didn't have to worry about anything. Instead, she was especially liked by the students. As such, Shuyao also learned a lot about the affairs of the students' families. For example, Wang Xiaoning said that her mother was pregnant with a second child. For example, Zhang Xiao said that her father found her a stepmother and she got pregnant. For example, Xia Tingting said that her mother was pregnant again. Because it was her third child, she aborted it. Every day, when Shuyao returned home after class, she would chat with Lin Jiej about school matters. As they chatted, she eventually came to a conclusion. There had been a lot of people getting pregnant recently. A second ago, she was lying on the sofa in Lin Jiej's embrace, munching on the grapes that he had stuffed into her mouth as she told him this conclusion. But a second later, she suddenly felt nauseous, and she abruptly leaped up from the sofa. Rushing to the bathroom, she began retching into the basin. Chapter 931. Shuyao's series of reactions came too abruptly. Caught completely off guard, Lin Jiej only realized what was going on when he heard Shuyao vomiting. He quickly got up and rushed to the washroom. "Yao Yao, why did you suddenly vomit? Are you feeling unwell?" After stopping her vomiting, she raised her head and shook her head at Lin Jiej through the mirror. She was just about to respond to him when another wave of nausea struck her, causing her to bend over and vomit once more. Lin Jiej hurriedly reached out to pat Shuyao's back. Seeing that she wasn't vomiting anything at all, he couldn't help but frown and say, "This won't do. Let's go to the hospital." As he said those words, Lin Jiej pulled on Shuyao's hand. Shuyao resisted Lin Jiej's hand for a moment, and when the nausea subsided a little, she said, "There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'm fine. Perhaps it's because the food in the school canteen was a little oily, so I've been feeling a little nauseous ever since I got home. Did you eat something unclean? Or is it a stomach problem?" Lin Jiej asked. But in the end, he still insisted on his opinion. "No matter what, it's best to let the doctor take a look at you. I don't have a fever or diarrhea, so it's definitely not something I ate." My stomach doesn't hurt either, so it can't be a stomach problem. It's too troublesome to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. I still have an early class tomorrow, and I'll be wasting a lot of time if I have to go to the hospital. Shi Yao turned on the tap and filled herself with a cup of warm water to rinse her mouth. Putting aside vomiting, even the discomfort in her stomach had disappeared without a trace. Thus, she stood her ground and said, "Besides, look at me. I'm fine now, so there's really no need for us to make a trip to the hospital." Lin Jiej was still a little worried, so he stared at Shi Yao and asked her a few more times. After confirming that she was really fine, he finally agreed to her request. But in the end, he still said, "Let's make things clear first. If you still feel unwell, you'll have to go to the hospital." Seeing that Lin Jiej had agreed to her request, Shi Yao nodded her head vehemently and replied with a few times. After that, she washed her hands and returned to the sofa with Lin Jiej to continue watching television. After dinner, she suddenly had a craving for grapes, so Lin Jiej specially drove to a nearby supermarket to buy them. When Shi Yao came out of the bathroom, she looked at the grapes, and for some reason, she suddenly lost her appetite. All of a sudden, she felt like eating watermelon. It was fortunate that Andy's son had brought a huge watermelon over a few days ago, so Lin Jiej didn't have to head out in the middle of the night. Thus, he headed straight to the dining room to help Shi Yao cut the watermelon. She had been vomiting a little back, so after he cut the watermelon, Lin Jiej prepared a cup of warm milk for her. By the time Lin Jiej returned from the dining room with a tray of watermelon and milk, Shi Yao, who had been hugging a pillow and staring intently at the television just a moment ago, was already leaning against the sofa, fast asleep. Lin Jiej didn't wake Shi Yao up. He carefully placed the things in his hands on the table before bending down to carry Shi Yao into the master bedroom. Lin, and, Lin 2, Lin Jibi, Yao, Yao, Don, Yao, and. Chapter 932. When she was at work, he would always send her messages, and occasionally, when he was free, they would talk on the phone. But lately, the frequency of her replying to his messages had been very slow, and the speed at which she would pick up his calls was also very slow. The only explanation she would give him was that she was sleepy, so she fell asleep on the table. She would always use this excuse to reply to him, causing him to think that she had found a new lover in school. 2 days ago, he had even disguised himself and sneaked over to her school to observe her. Only after confirming that she was really sleeping did he feel reassured and return to the company to continue with his meeting. Speaking of which, it was really strange. In the past, she wouldn't even sleep at 1 or 2 in the evening, but for the past week, she would be so sleepy that she couldn't even open her eyes before 10. By 9 in the morning, he had already tidied up, but she was still lazing around in bed. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be anything wrong with Soft Bun's body. Before she started working, he had accompanied her for a full body checkup, and she seemed to be in perfect health. Could it be that Soft Bun was feeling extremely sleepy due to the arrival of spring? With this thought in mind, he carefully covered Shi Yao with the blanket again. Gazing at her sleeping face, he suddenly recalled that he had a client meeting the night before yesterday, so after sending her home, he had returned to the company to work overtime. By the time he returned, she was already asleep. Yesterday, at 9:30, he had received an overseas call, and by the time he hung up, she had already fallen asleep once more. Today, it would have been fine if she didn't count, but it had been quite a few days since he last greeted her. It was no wonder why he felt like something was missing recently. It turned out that he had been buying fewer condoms than usual. At this rate, wouldn't he end up malnourished? No, this won't do. I have to accompany Soft Bun to mark the students' homework tomorrow. After that, I have to coax Soft Bun to bed so that I can replenish her nutrients before she falls asleep. The next day, Shi Yao was still woken up by Lin Jiej's voice. not by her alarm. Even though she had slept for nearly 10 hours, she still felt that she hadn't slept enough. However, the thought that she had to go to work soon made her perk up. She climbed out of bed and headed to the bathroom to wash up. While she was brushing her teeth, the nauseating sensation from the previous night resurfaced once more. Yao reached into the wash basin, and when she finally recovered, a deep frown appeared on her forehead. "What's wrong with me? I've been feeling nauseous since yesterday. It's already the second day, but this feeling still hasn't disappeared. Could there really be something wrong with me? Yao yao. Yao yao." Lin Jiej's voice sounded from outside the bedroom, calling Yao out for breakfast. Yao quickly reined in her thoughts and replied to Lin Jiej. She quickly rinsed her mouth and washed her face before walking out of the bedroom. Breakfast was Yao's favorite meat buns and tofu pudding, but not only did Yao not have the slightest desire to eat them, she even felt nauseous just looking at them. On the other hand, the pickled cucumbers that she usually didn't like to eat, along with the millet porridge, she actually ate a huge plate of them. It was only when Lin Jiej noticed that she was eating too much pickled food and stopped her that she finally gave up. After breakfast, as usual, Lin Jiej drove Yao to her school. It had only been half an hour since Yao woke up and finished her breakfast, but as she sat in the car and basked in the warm spring sun, she suddenly felt a little drowsy, lazy, and even a little tired. Chapter 933. After arriving at the entrance of G University's affiliated high school, Yao got out of the car and watched as Lin Jiej's car drove away before turning around to head back to school. But before she could make a move, someone suddenly called out to her, "Teacher Shi." Hearing the commotion, Yao raised her head and saw her student, Zhang Xiao, hopping down from a red car and running toward her excitedly. Yao shot Zhang Xiao a warm smile, and just as she was about to greet her, she suddenly caught sight of the person in the driver's seat through the lowered window of the red car, and the smile on her lips abruptly froze. She recognized that person. It was an old acquaintance. Even though it had been 2 years since they last met, Yao could still easily recognize that the other party was her former schoolmate, Qin Yiran. Just like back when they were still in university, Qin Yiran still had her makeup done up exquisitely, but at this moment, it was more appropriate for her to wear heavy makeup. Both her wrists and her ears were adorned with sparkling jewels. She didn't seem to have expected to meet Yao here either, and a look of surprise appeared on her face. However, Yao didn't meet Qin Yiran's gaze for too long because Zhang Xiao had already walked up to her and intimately reached out to grab her hand. "Teacher Shi, good morning." Snapping out of her daze, Yao lowered her head to look at Zhang Xiao and said, "Student Zhang Xiao, good morning." Seeing that Qin Yiran wasn't intending to greet her, Yao naturally wouldn't take the initiative to greet Qin Yiran either. Thus, she pulled Zhang Xiao into the school. On the way to the classroom, Yao couldn't help but ask Zhang Xiao, "Is the person who drove you here your relative?" "No." Zhang Xiao shook her head with a displeased look on her face. "Teacher Shi, she's the pregnant stepmother that my father found for me. I really hate her, and I don't agree to her becoming my stepmother, so my father doesn't dare to bring her home. In the past, she didn't even bother to pay attention to me, probably because my father is rich. After seeing how much weight I hold in my father's heart, she's been trying to curry favor with me like a madman lately, buying me clothes and sending me to school. But even so, I still don't like her, Teacher Shi. I know that life isn't easy for my father. My mother passed away after giving birth to me, so it's only a matter of time before my father finds a stepmother for me, but I don't want that woman to become my stepmother. I suspect that the child in her womb isn't my father's. They all think that I'm too young to understand anything, but the truth is that I know everything. Teacher Shi, do you know that I was there when that woman met my father? She was the woman of one of my uncles back then, and for some reason, she hooked up with my father. Teacher sure, if only you were the stepmother that my father found for me. That way, I would be able to see you all the time. Teacher sure, why did you find yourself a boyfriend so early in life? Hearing those words, Shiryao couldn't help but chuckle. If Lin Jiej were to hear those words, he would surely be overwhelmed with jealousy. She reached out to stroke Zhang Xiao's head and said, "It's fine. Even after you graduate, you can still come to school to play with me." Hearing those words, Zhang Xiao immediately cheered up. Teacher sure, as long as you don't find me annoying, I'll come to play with you every day even after I graduate. Chapter 934. After Zhang Xiao returned to the classroom, Shiryao headed to her office. Sitting in front of her desk, Shiryao couldn't help but remark, this world sure is full of coincidences at times. She had thought that regardless of whether it was Qin Iran, Liang Mumu, or Han Jing, they were all in the past, never to appear in her life again. Who could have thought that Qin Iran would actually get involved with her student? Based on Zhang Xiao's description, Qin Iran probably didn't manage to find a decent job after graduation, so she ended up fooling around with some rich men. However, when she met Zhang Xiao's father, she began thinking that she could make use of her son's prestige to soar up the tree and become a phoenix. Unfortunately, no matter how good her plan was, she never expected Zhang Xiao's father to care so much about his daughter. Zhang Xiao didn't like her, so she couldn't rely on the child in her belly to successfully enter a wealthy family. In the past, Shiryao wouldn't feel tired even if she had to attend 4 classes a day. But today, she had no idea what was wrong with her. It had only been a single class, but her legs were already turning into jelly, and she looked like she was going to faint at any moment. It wasn't easy for her to force herself to sit through the entire lesson, and by now, she could be said to be completely drained. Back in the office, she sat on the chair and did not want to move. It was fortunate that she didn't have any lessons in the morning, so after a short break, she flipped open her textbook and began writing her lesson plans. As she was writing, she suddenly felt nauseous once more. Unable to make it to the washroom in time, she could only grab the small trash can on the table and vomit into it. As she vomited, she could vaguely feel a throbbing pain in her abdomen. These signs were really too abnormal. While Shiryao was deep in thought, she suddenly retched once more. The person sitting next to her was Teacher Li. He was an intern teacher who had just graduated just like her, but he was a guy. Seeing that she kept vomiting, he couldn't help but ask in concern, "Teacher sure, why is your face so pale? Do you want to go to the school hospital?" Hearing those words, Zhang Laoshe, who was seated opposite Shiryao, raised her head to look at Shiryao. She was already a mother of 2, so she was much calmer than Li Laoshe. "Sure Laoshe, when did you start vomiting so much? How many days have you been throwing up?" Shiryao replied, "I started vomiting yesterday." Zhang Laoshe didn't say a word. Instead, he stood up and walked up to Shiryao before asking softly, "What about your period? Are they here? If you didn't come, you look like you're pregnant." As Zhang Laoshe spoke, she glared at Teacher Li, who had come over to eavesdrop on her conversation with Shiryao. "Why are you butting in on the topic of women?" Teacher Li, who had been scolded, sat up straight. Zhang Laoshe walked up to Shiryao and said, "You should go to the hospital for a checkup. You can't go wrong if you listen to me." Shiryao quickly thanked Zhang Laoshe with a smile. After which, she returned to her desk and sat down, took out her phone and took a look at her notebook. It was then that she realized that she hadn't had her period last month. As it was her first time interning as a teacher, she had focused all her attention on her students and did not notice these details. Now that he thought about it, vomiting, lethargy, feeling weak all over, and a drastic change in taste, all of these were very consistent with the pattern of pregnancy. Could it really be, as Teacher Zhang said, that she was pregnant? Chapter 935. However, even if she had used contraceptives, it wasn't 100% effective. Could it be that she and Lin Jiej had encountered that extremely small chance of pregnancy? The more Shuyao thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. This was especially so when she recalled how her lower abdomen was throbbing in pain while she was lecturing earlier. Feeling a little worried, she recalled that she didn't have any classes in the afternoon, so she applied for a leave of absence and listened to Zhang Laosher's advice to head to the hospital for a checkup. Knowing that Lin Jiej had a meeting in the afternoon, Shuyao didn't disturb him. Instead, she gave Leng Nuan a call and had the latter pick her up from school before accompanying her to Beijing's largest maternity hospital. Registering, lining up, and a series of checkups. By the time Shuyao received the results, it was already 3 in the afternoon. Just as Zhang Laosher had said, she was really pregnant, and she had been pregnant for nearly 2 months now. The doctor in charge of her suggested that she go for an ultrasound, and by the time she received the results, it was already around 4 in the afternoon. After taking a look at the scan, the doctor told Shuyao that everything was fine and reminded her to come back for another checkup in a month's time. By the time Shuyao and Leng Nuan walked out of the hospital, the spring breeze was already blowing in their faces, carrying the fragrance of freshly bloomed winter jasmine. Shuyao's mind, which had been in a muddled state ever since she found out that she was pregnant, finally cleared up a little. She was really pregnant. Even if she had used contraceptives, the extremely small chance of pregnancy had really happened to her and Lin Jiej. Shuyao felt that everything was so surreal that when Leng Nuan opened the car door and called her in, she couldn't help but ask, "Nuan Nuan, am I really pregnant?" As Leng Nuan started the car, she shot a glance at Shuyao. Recalling how young Shuyao was and how shocked she was, she couldn't help but ask, "What do you plan to do with this child?" "What do you mean by plan?" Shuyao asked Leng Nuan in return. It was only then that she realized that Leng Nuan was asking her such a question because her reaction had been too bizarre. Thus, she replied, "Of course we're going to give birth to the child. It's just a matter of time before Lin Jiej and I are going to have a child. Now that we suddenly have a child, we can't possibly abort it. I just find it a little inconceivable." Shuyao paused for a moment before recalling that she hadn't shared this piece of good news with Lin Jiej yet. So, she took out her phone, intending to send Lin Jiej a message. But halfway through, she suddenly felt that it wouldn't be too exciting to tell him such an explosive piece of news through text. Thus, she turned to Leng Nuan and said, "Nuan Nuan, can you send me to Lin Jiej's office?" By the time Shuyao arrived at Lin Jiej's office, it was around 5 in the morning. Lin Jiej was in the middle of a meeting, so Shuyao didn't have anyone disturb him and headed straight to his office. Perhaps it was because she had been rushing around the hospital for too long that she fell asleep on Lin Jiej's sofa while waiting for him. By the time she woke up, she felt a tickling sensation on her ear. She frowned slightly before realizing that Lin Jiej was kissing her. Dodging Lin Jiej's kiss, she glanced out the window and saw that the sky had already darkened. Subconsciously, she asked, "What time is it?" "It's almost 7. As Lin Jiej replied, his lips pressed against her neck once more, and his hand even slipped under her clothes. Having been together with Lin Jiej for 2 years, Shuyao naturally knew what he was up to. A slight frown appeared on her forehead as she subconsciously grabbed Lin Jiej's hand and said, "Lin Jiej, wait a moment. I have something to tell you." Chapter 936. Having been together with Lin Jiej for 2 years, Shuyao naturally knew what he was up to. With a slight frown on her forehead, she subconsciously grabbed Lin Jiej's hand and said, "Lin Jiej, I have something to tell you, Lin Jiej kissed the corner of Shuyao's lips as he muttered something inaudible. It didn't take long for him to extricate himself from her grasp and grow restless once more. Faced with Lin Jie's perfunctory response, Shi Yao was a little displeased, and her tone grew a little heavier as she said, Lin Jie. Lin Jie's actions didn't stop, but his lips moved away from Shi Yao a little as he said. You talk about your stuff, and I'll do mine. We'll do it at the same time, do ice cream balls at the same time. But just as Lin Jie was about to kiss her once more, Shi Yao suddenly reached out to hold his face back, preventing him from getting any closer. Lin Jie, I really have something very serious to tell you. Despite being stopped by her, Lin Jie didn't show the slightest hint of anger. Instead, he grabbed her hand and began kissing it. At the same time, his other hand was already stripping off her clothes with greater fervor. Lin Jie, I'm really going to get angry if you continue like this. Yao, I was wrong. Lin Jie admitted his mistake, but his body had already pinned Shi Yao beneath him. Lin Jie. Shi Yao panicked. She struggled with all her might, but there was no way she could withstand Lin Jie's strength. In the end, she could only threaten him, Lin Jie, make your choice. Do you want to be tied to the bed or locked in the bathroom? Lin Jie, I'm telling you, we're going to have another member in our family. Seeing that her threats were ineffective, Shi Yao decided to throw out her trump card. Oh. Lin Jie replied nonchalantly. Pressing down on the struggling Shi Yao, he skillfully took off her clothes before placing his lips on her fair back. With a seductive tone, he asked. Yao, do you want to keep a dog or a cat? Was it really that hard to understand what she meant earlier? He actually thought that she was going to have a pet when she said that she was going to have another member. Shi Yao frowned as she glanced at the man whose eyes were filled with lust. A thought suddenly came to her mind, and she turned around, hooked her arms around his neck, and winked at him. With a seductive tone, she asked, Why don't you take a guess? Lin Jie had been missing Shi Yao a lot lately, and seeing her in such a state made his heart itch even more. He lowered his head and kissed Shi Yao's neck and chest. No matter what you raise, I'll always support you. Really? A hint of delight could be seen on Shi Yao's face as she asked Lin Jie. After which, her slender fingers fell on Lin Jie's belt, and with a light tug, she undid his belt. They had been together for 2 years. She naturally knew where he couldn't stand it the most, so she focused on that area. She deliberately made her movements very slow, seductive and rhythmic, teasing him until his mouth was dry and his body was on fire. Lin Jie really couldn't stand the torment of being in heaven one moment and then hell the next. He grabbed her hand and couldn't wait to dive straight into the main topic. However, just as he was about to make his move, the seductive woman suddenly said calmly, We're going to have another member in our family. It's not a cat or a dog, but your greatest love rival in history, a baby. Lin Jie's movements didn't stop there. Shi Yao wasn't in a hurry either. She continued speaking leisurely, to put it simply, I'm pregnant. Chapter 937. As if someone had sealed Lin Jie's acupoints, he suddenly froze on the spot. 3 seconds later, he raised his head to look at Shi Yao and said, Yao, this joke isn't funny at all. Look at me, I'm about to go soft from fear. As he spoke, he lowered his head to kiss Shi Yao once more. However, before he could make a move, the prepared Shi Yao had already taken out the test report from her bag and flung it at Lin Jie's face. Look at it yourself. Lin Jie touched his stinging cheek as he lowered his head to look at the few pieces of paper before him. With a perplexed look on his face, he reached out to pick them up one by one. After reading the first report, a slight frown appeared on his forehead. After reading the second report, the frown on his forehead deepened even further. After reading the third report, a deep frown appeared between his brows. After reading the fourth report, just as he had said, his heart had completely gone soft, looking at the images before her. Xiuyao pushed Lin Jie away in satisfaction. She sat up and tidied up her clothes before admiring the petrified look on Lin Jie's face, waiting for him to come back to his senses. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. When Xiuyao counted down to 70, Lin Jie looked at the final report in his hands and blinked his eyes. He blinked his eyes several times before staring at the report with a stiff expression for a few more seconds. Finally, he raised his head to look at Xiuyao and said, "Yao Yao, you're getting more and more mischievous. Your jokes are getting bigger and bigger. Tell me honestly, how much money did you spend on these fake reports?" "Forge your head." Without any hesitation, Xiuyao kicked Lin Jie's knee and said, "Lin Jie, what do you mean by this? Are you going to go back on your word with Little Apple?" Lin Jie groaned in pain. He opened his innocent eyes to look at Xiuyao and asked in bewilderment, "Little Apple?" "That's right. I really wanted to eat an apple earlier, so I named the child in my stomach Little Apple, Lin Jie." The child already had a nickname. Seeing that Lin Jie wasn't speaking, Xiuyao spoke up once more, "Lin Jie, why aren't you speaking? Do you not welcome little glutinous dumpling?" Lin Jie. This time, before he could respond, Xiuyao had already spoken up. "I was craving glutinous rice dumplings again, so I decided to change the baby's nickname to Little Glutinous Rice Dumpling." Lin Jie. This name sure changes fast. I can't keep up with it at all. What should I do? Lin Jie, why aren't you saying anything? Don't tell me you think Little Milk Tea isn't your child. Little Milk Tea. In the blink of an eye, she wanted to drink milk tea again, so she changed the name to Little Milk Tea. This time, Lin Jie didn't dare to wait for Xiuyao to speak up. He quickly replied, "No." For some reason, he felt as if he was dreaming. He pinched his thigh, and when he felt a piercing pain, he turned to Xiuyao and asked with a look of disbelief, "Yao Yao, are these test results real?" Xiuyao nodded and replied with a "on." Finally, she had heard something that sounded reasonable to her. "So, Yao Yao, are you really pregnant?" "I'm going to be a father." Chapter 938. What? Xiuyao raised her head and glared at Lin Jie. Lin Jie realized that he had let the cat out of the bag, so he quickly corrected himself. "I said it was too late, I knew it too late. I should have received the good news as soon as I returned to the office." Hearing those words, Xiuyao's expression softened. Lin Jie heaved a sigh of relief. It was fortunate that he had reacted quickly enough. If Soft Bun had known what she had said earlier, he probably wouldn't even be able to continue chatting with her under the blanket anymore. Just yesterday, he was still thinking that he had been suffering from malnutrition recently, and he needed to nourish himself today. Yet, such a shocking piece of news had suddenly fallen upon him. The heavens must be trying to make life difficult for him. Putting aside malnutrition, he might not even be able to nourish himself in the near future. Soft Bun was right. The child in her womb was the greatest love rival in history. No matter how skilled he was at pinching peach blossoms, even if he had 100 guts, no, 1,000 guts, there was no way he would dare to pinch this peach blossom. He had only been together with Soft Bun for 2 years, and they hadn't even had enough of their time together yet. How did she get pregnant? Was it easy for him to fall in love? Why did he have to go through so many twists and turns? Also, what were the nicknames of the child in her womb? Little Apple, Little Milk Tea, Little Glutinous Dumpling, or Little Light Bulb? No, it should be Blinding Big Light Bulb. Looking at Lin Jie's ever-changing expression, Xiuyao couldn't help but feel that he wasn't moved or excited. So, she stretched out her hand and waved it in front of his face. "Lin Jie. Why do I feel like you're unhappy?" Of course he was unhappy. There was suddenly a formidable rival who wanted to snatch his wife away from him, and it was a rival that he had to support with his own money. It would be a wonder if he was happy. However, Lin Jiej didn't dare to speak the truth. He shook his head vehemently. How could that be? I'm very happy. I'm going to be a father soon. Just thinking about it feels like a dream. As he said those words, Lin Jiej felt as if his heart was bleeding. Perhaps it was due to his guilty conscience, but he was afraid that Shi Yao would see through his act, so he quickly changed the topic. Yao Yao, let's discuss our marriage. Even though he didn't intend to have a child, he couldn't allow Soft Bun to abort the child out of the blue. After all, an abortion was harmful to the body, and he couldn't do something like that. Besides, they were going to get married sooner or later. He had planned to hold the wedding after she had graduated, but she was pregnant now. If they didn't hold the wedding in a few months later, it would become a huge problem. If they didn't hold the wedding, others would gossip about it. Lin Jiej, they, and Soft. With such, Yao, Lin, Yao, we have the Yao, I, and, you, I, Lin, we should hold the wedding. Lin, if, and you, will, your wedding soon. As he spoke, he picked up his phone and gave his grandfather a call. Lin said, and. After hanging up the phone, old Master Lin, who was sitting in front of the television, could not stop smiling. When Auntie Sun brought the fruits over to Grandpa Lin, she took a look at the television. The main character in the television was critically ill, and a bunch of people were bawling their eyes out. It wasn't funny at all, but wasn't it a little too bizarre for Grandpa Lin to be laughing like that? Perplexed, Auntie Sun couldn't help but take a few more glances at old Mr. Lin. Noticing her gaze, old Mr. Lin chuckled as he picked up a grape and stuffed it into his mouth. Auntie Sun, are you going to ask me why I'm so happy? Before Auntie Sun could say anything, old Mr. Lin had already burst into laughter once more. Auntie Sun, don't look at me. Just look at me, and I'll never tell you that I have a great-grandson. Chapter 939. Auntie Sun, you didn't want to tell me, but you couldn't control yourself and spilled the beans. Auntie Sun, congratulations, old mister. You're finally going to have a great-grandson soon. Upon hearing those words, a deep frown appeared on Grandpa Lin's forehead. He stared at Auntie Sun in bewilderment and asked curiously, how did you know that I have a great-grandson? Auntie Sun, old mister, you said it yourself. Hearing those words, Grandpa Lin suddenly realized that he had accidentally spilled the beans in his excitement. In an instant, he glared at Auntie Sun in displeasure, and like a child, he spat out, Auntie Sun, how can you do this to me? You're trying to get my secret. Auntie Sun, she didn't say anything at all earlier. All she did was look at him a little longer, and he said it himself. Grandpa Lin quickly waved his hands with a forgiving look. Forget it. Seeing that Yao Yao is pregnant, I won't hold it against you anymore. Auntie Sun felt aggrieved, but she could only say, thank you, old mister. Grandpa Lin picked up the teacup on the table and slowly drank half of it. Even though she got pregnant 2 months later than I expected, it's good that she's pregnant. As he spoke, old Master Lin couldn't help but ridicule his grandson. There must be something wrong with that brat. If it wasn't for him, would I have waited from November last year to May this year before hearing the good news of Yao Yao's pregnancy? Auntie Sun couldn't help but defend Lin Jiej. Old mister, pregnancy isn't something that young master can decide alone. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that there's something wrong with Yao Yao? Let me tell you, that's impossible. There's definitely something wrong with Jiej and Yao Yao. Grandpa Lin glared at Auntie Sun furiously. Auntie Sun. That wasn't what she meant. She was just feeling sorry for young Master Lin. The old man was growing more and more fond of Miss Shi, to the point where he couldn't even speak carelessly. Auntie Sun hurriedly explained, old mister, how could I dare to say that there's something wrong with Miss Sher? I just think that you're being too biased toward Miss Sher. Those who don't know might even think that Miss Sher is your biological granddaughter and the young master is your grandson-in-law. Old Mr. Lin, if Yao Yao is really my granddaughter, I definitely won't let her marry that brat. Auntie's son. Alright, there was nothing she could do. She could only choose to sympathize with the young master for a minute. Auntie's son, old sir, if young master were to hear these words of yours, he would surely feel sad. He would think that his existence in your heart is to marry Miss Sher, old Master Lin. It's not all about marrying Yao Yao. Hearing those words, Auntie's son couldn't help but feel gratified for Lin Jiej. At the end of the day, he was still a beloved grandson. Old Master Lin. And getting Yao Yao pregnant. Auntie's son was rendered speechless. If Auntie's son were to stay any longer, she was afraid that she'd die of heartache. Thus, she quickly found an excuse to leave and said, "Old mister, I'll head to the kitchen to take a look." "I'm still cooking soup." Old Master Lin waved his hand and said, "Go on." Just as Auntie's son was about to turn around, Old Master Lin suddenly called out to her, "Right, I want you to keep Yao Yao's pregnancy a secret. Don't let anyone know about it." Auntie's son, "Yes, old master." Chapter 940. Auntie's son subconsciously turned around and saw Grandpa Lin talking on the phone with a proud look on his face. "That's for sure. Putting aside treating you to a drink, you must definitely come to my granddaughter-in-law's wedding in a few days' time." "Alright, that's a promise then." After old Master Lin hung up, he did not put down his phone. Instead, he stared at it for a while before making another call. "Old Chin, didn't you say that you wanted to visit me when you had the time?" "Of course I miss you, or else why would I call you? I really have some good news to tell you. My granddaughter-in-law is pregnant." "Where's your son? He's almost 40, right? Is he still unwilling to get married?" "Indeed, the two of us are around the same age. My great-grandson is about to come out, but your grandson isn't even around." "Old Xia, what have you been busy with recently? What about in Hainan?" "Me? I'm not as fortunate as you to be able to go on a vacation so easily. I can't leave." "Why can't I leave?" "Because my granddaughter-in-law is pregnant." "Old Zhang, are you still playing cards? It's not good for your health." "Me? I don't have time to play cards with you guys recently." "Why?" "Because my granddaughter-in-law is pregnant." "Brother Liu," Auntie's son couldn't bear to look at the sight before her, so she quickly turned her head away and walked into the kitchen silently. "Who was the one who told me to keep it a secret?" Yet, as if wanting to announce it to the world, she called all of her old friends and told them that young Mistress Sher was pregnant. When Auntie's son came out to call Grandpa Lin for dinner, he was still on the phone. "Gu Nan, what are you and Xia Yang doing? Why didn't you come to visit me? Did you come to visit me yesterday? Yesterday is yesterday, and today is today. Did you come to visit me today? Forget it. On account of Yao Yao's pregnancy, I'll forgive you and Xia Yang." "Gu Bei, are you overseas with Wan Huan? Is the company so important? Is it more important than Yao Yao?" "Forget it. On account of Yao Yao's pregnancy, I'll reluctantly accept the two of you returning to China after you're done with your work." "Jai, I'm your grandfather. Of course I'm calling you because I miss you. Do you miss me too?" "I don't believe you. I knew that you were just coaxing me, but on account of Yao Yao's pregnancy, I'll take it as believing you this time." Auntie's son was rendered speechless for a long time. Old Master Lin had been on the phone the entire time she had been busy in the kitchen. Was the phone bill enough? While Auntie's son was still deep in thought, Grandpa Lin abruptly hung up the call with Lin Jai. He turned to Auntie's son and said, "Can you help me pay my phone bill later?" I just received a text notification saying that I have less than 10 renminbi left. Yes, Auntie's son hurriedly replied before continuing, Old sir, dinner is ready. Please eat it while it's hot. Old Master Lin sighed and sat on the sofa to make another call. Then, he got up and entered the dining room. Old Mr. Lin was getting on in years, and his taste buds were getting lighter and lighter. The fish stewed by Chef Xiao Song was a little salty to old Mr. Lin. As he ate, he reminded Xiao Song, next time, make the fish lighter. Xiao Song hurriedly walked over and wanted to take the fish away. Old sir, do you want me to make you another one? Chapter 941. Even though Lin Jiej harbored a deep grudge toward the fetus in Shi Yao's womb, after hanging up the call with his grandfather, he noticed that Shi Yao was only wearing a jacket. So, he couldn't help but shout for her to wait for a moment. Then, he headed into the resting room, took out a scarf that he usually used in winter, and wrapped it around Shi Yao's neck. Even though it's spring right now, it's still a little chilly at night. Try not to get exposed to the wind lest you catch a cold. If that happens, you won't be able to take your medicine. After saying those words, Lin Jiej took another look at Shi Yao and noticed that she was wearing a pair of 5-centimeter high heels. He couldn't help but frown as he said, from today onward, you can't wear heels anymore. It'll be terrible if you fall. As he said those words, Lin Jiej held Shi Yao's hand and took 2 steps out of the room. However, he still couldn't help but feel a little worried, so he decided to support her instead. Seeing how cautious Lin Jiej was, Shi Yao couldn't help but say, Lin Jiej, I'm not that delicate. Even if you're not that delicate, you still have to be treated as such. While they were speaking, the elevator that Lin Jiej and Shi Yao boarded stopped on the 6th floor. The door opened, and a man was standing at the entrance of the elevator. He reeked of cigarette smoke. Lin Jiej frowned slightly. Just as the man was about to enter the elevator, he reached out to stop him and said, I'm sorry, but can I trouble you to take the elevator with me? Shi Yao looked at Lin Jiej in bewilderment. Just as she was about to ask Lin Jiej why he was doing this, Lin Jiej suddenly turned to look at the elevator entrance with a stern expression. Just like Shi Yao, the perplexed man spoke up once more, smoking is harmful to one's health. You should know this, right? Secondhand smoke is even more harmful to one's body. You should know this as well, right? If you didn't, I've already told you about it, so you should already know. Since you do, you should take care of the pregnant lady and not come in. Hearing those words, Shi Yao finally understood Lin Jiej's intentions. She tugged on Lin Jiej's clothes in an attempt to stop him from going overboard. Lin Jiej. At the same time, the man standing at the entrance of the elevator also spoke up, Sir, I'm not smoking. Ignoring Shi Yao's actions and the man's words, Lin Jiej persisted in his opinion. With a straight face, he looked at the man who was staring at him as if he was a lunatic and spoke with conviction, It's true that you're not smoking, but there's the smell of cigarettes on you. It's a pity that the smell of cigarettes is so strong. If you were to come in, what would happen to my fiancée? What if it affected the child in her belly? You can shoulder such a responsibility. Before Lin Jiej could finish his words, the man standing outside the elevator had already reached out to press the close button, and the elevator doors slowly closed, silencing Lin Jiej's righteous words. As the elevator continued descending, Shi Yao expressed her opinion on Lin Jiej's earlier actions. Lin Jiej, your actions earlier were a little too exaggerated, did I? I don't think it was exaggerated at all. The stench on him was so strong. What if he choked on you and the child in your belly? Lin Jiej had always adhered to the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. When Soft Bun went out, he had to obey her orders. When Soft Bun was wrong, he had to obey her blindly. When Soft Bun put on makeup, he had to obey her generosity. when Soft Bun was angry, he had to obey her, and when Soft Bun's birthday was remembered. Chapter 942. In Shiryao's eyes, Lin Jie's so-called restraint was only getting worse. Be it getting into or out of the car or walking on foot, Lin Jie was treating her as if she was a queen in his harem, carefully supporting her, afraid that she might trip and fall. Whenever there were too many people around, Lin Jie would pull her into his embrace to protect her. There were even some people who tried to get too close to her, but even when they were still a meter away from each other, he would warn them to be careful of pregnant women. This made it so that no one was able to get within a 2-meter radius of Shiryao. Shiryao suddenly felt like eating Cantonese cuisine, so Lin Jie brought her to the best Cantonese restaurant in Beijing. Along the way, he drove very carefully, and when he was still 50 meters away from the car ahead, he would step on the brakes. But that wasn't all. Even when they arrived at the entrance of the Cantonese restaurant, he still refused to let her get out of the car. Instead, he ran into the restaurant and checked the route she would take to ensure that there were no watermarks on the ground. Only after confirming that there were no slippery spots on the ground did he run to the car and carefully help her out of the car before escorting her into the suite. After taking a seat and ordering the dishes, Shiryao wanted to wash her hands, but Lin Jie stopped her. Using the excuse that there was water in the washroom and that she might fall, he had a waiter buy a wash basin from the supermarket next door. Then, he personally filled it with water and brought it over to Shiryao to help her wash her hands. Lin Jie wasn't tired at all, but Shiryao was on the verge of going insane. She couldn't help but accuse Lin Jie of lying to her. He said that he would control himself, but he didn't. Lin Jie blinked at Shiryao innocently and said, "Yao Yao, you're wrongly accusing me. I'm really trying my best to control myself. If not for the fact that I respect your opinion, I would have closed off the entire road that we're driving on. I even wanted to book this entire restaurant so that you're the only one enjoying this meal. I even wanted to hire a few security guards to surround you from all directions to prevent others from approaching." At the end of his words, Shiryao felt her head throbbing in pain. "Alright, that's enough." Lin Jie obediently shut his mouth and took out a napkin to wipe Shiryao's hands clean. After which, he used a cloth to dry up the water droplets on the floor before sitting down in front of Shiryao and serving her her meal. He was really serving her. He was serving her even better than the emperor in the back palace. Throughout the entire process, Shiryao didn't need to move her chopsticks at all. All she needed to do was to move her eyeballs. When she looked at the dish, Lin Jie would feed it to her mouth, and when she frowned at the dish, he would immediately move it far away. By the end of the meal, Lin Jie had a radiant smile on his face, as if nothing had happened at all. However, Shiryao couldn't help but feel exhausted on his behalf. On his way home, the roads were extremely smooth, but Lin Jie maintained the slowest speed he could muster. Shiryao asked anxiously, "Lin Jie, why aren't you going down to push the cart? If it wasn't for the fact that I can't move it, I really would have done so." Lin Jie consoled Shiryao as he spoke. "Yao Yao, don't panic. Let's walk slowly. It'll be safer this way." When they reached home, Shiryao thought that it was finally over, so she wanted to take a bath and rest. However, Lin Jie insisted on accompanying her throughout the entire process. Suppressing the urge to pummel Lin Jie, Shiryao waved her hand at him and said, "I'll bathe later. I suddenly feel like drinking yogurt, I'll get it for you." Chapter 943. After Shiryao was done bathing and changing into her pajamas, she let Lin Jie into her bedroom. She was indeed a little tired, so she lay down on the bed and closed her eyes. Lin Jie didn't disturb her. Instead, he stayed by her side and accompanied her to sleep. Not too long later, Shiryao fell into a deep sleep. It was still early, so Lin Jiej didn't feel sleepy at all. But in such a quiet bedroom, looking at Shi Yao, who was no different from usual, his eyes couldn't help but soften. The scene from 2 years ago when they first got together was still vivid in his mind, as if it had just happened. In the blink of an eye, she was pregnant with his child. Life was truly a wondrous journey. If you met the right person, every day, every minute, and every second of your life would be filled with surprises. In his daze, Lin Jiej's hand uncontrollably rose up and landed lightly on Shi Yao's abdomen. Her waist was still as slender and light as ever. He found it hard to believe that their child had already been silently born from within. He had to admit that he didn't have any feelings toward the sudden appearance of a child, but he loved this child because the child was hers. Lin Jiej didn't know how long he had been staring at Shi Yao silently for when his phone suddenly lit up. He took out his phone and took a look. It was a message from Liu Benlai. "Boss, do you want to come out for a drink?" Had it been in the past, Lin Jiej would have rejected Liu Benlai's invitation unless Shi Yao came along. However, Shi Yao was already asleep, and he didn't feel sleepy at all. Thus, he agreed to it. By the time Lin Jiej arrived, Xie Shangzhou and Liu Benlai were already drinking. When they saw him, they raised their heads in bewilderment and looked behind him. Seeing that the person they were looking for wasn't there, they couldn't help but ask, "Boss, where's little Junior?" Lin Jiej replied nonchalantly, "She's resting," before taking a seat. Liu Benlai was drinking real wine, but Xie Shangzhou was drinking Sprite. He couldn't help but frown. Liu Benlai understood what Lin Jiej was trying to say. "Boss, are you thinking that old Xia is really boring? Every time we come out for a drink, he's always drinking Sprite." Lin Jiej nodded his head in agreement before pouring himself half a glass of wine. "Xie Shangzhou, it's not that I don't want to drink, but I can't. Who knows when Boss Lin will call me to drive him to do something." Liu Benlai raised his wine glass and clinked it against Lin Jiej's as he muttered under his breath, "You always say the same thing, old Xia. I can already recite it backwards. It's not that I want to nag at you, but we're graduates of G University, and yet, you're still stuck as a special assistant. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? It's not like Boss hasn't told you that if you need anything, you can just ask. I just don't get it. Are you really that afraid of Boss's sister? Phone, and that you don, you, Xie Shangzhou, no, it has nothing to do with fear. It's the contract. I signed the contract back then, so I have to fulfill it. This is a matter of integrity," Lin Jiej and Xia Yao said. He spr, Yao, she didn't moo. And Yao, he, away, at today, and, spr, and Jia, Xia, and Yao, and, Lin, Yao, Xia, he. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.